This episode of the Major Issues Podcast is brought to you by ComicBook Clique at tpublic.com. Take a selfie rocking one of our shirts from TeePublic and use the hashtag CBCWorthy for a chance to win 2 free tickets to see Captain Marvel in theaters March 8th. Just click the Shop Comic Book Clique link in our show notes to make a purchase, or follow us on Facebook for more information. Remember, you are worthy.
Last September, with the leaves just beginning to hint at the fall to come, the Visions of Virginia moved into their house at 616 Hickory Branch Lane, Arlington, Virginia.
Hello, everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason. That's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you by Comic Book Clique. And as always, I am never alone. Sir, please introduce yourself.
How's it going, everybody? It's Jonathan Escudero here, aka Yogi.
Yogi is here in studio, and he's the one that did that so eloquent intro into this particular episode of the Major Issues Podcast, and that's because we are diving into a very delicate story, a very ominous story, a depressing story. The Tom King's Vision run, the volume 2 of Vision, which came out in 2016, one of the works of Tom King that people cite as to why they see him as one of the great prolific writers of today. And as somebody who has had my share to say about Tom King, you know, it's funny. I was reminded that about a year ago to this day, we did our Cat Bat episode. So,
yeah, happy anniversary.
That's crazy, right? So a year ago, I was basically banging on the walls saying, why is this man writing Batman? And, I read his Mr. Miracle run and I really, really dug it. But this Vision stuff, bro, I guess, we actually haven't spoken at all, even candidly about this book. But how did you feel about it? What overall feelings do you have after reading it? And did it surprise you in any way?
Well, the first feeling I have is obviously that I'm gonna need therapy now. But like, I got, there's this running joke online where it's like, if you read a Tom King book, get ready for depression, and this book is one of the prime examples of that. He so many themes, so many different. So he emotionally invests you into these characters and then just rips your heart right out of your chest. I really enjoyed it, though. I enjoyed this read. I thought it was great. It gave me a new... this is actually the first Vision-centric story I've ever read. Like, I've never actually gotten around to reading the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries. Like, this is my first time. So I know it's volume 2, but I never got around to reading volume 1. So I'm like, I got a new appreciation for the character and his mindset and how he felt after he lost his kids with Scarlet Witch and everything like that.
Yeah, I thought it was... interesting that when you do a deep dive on the character, even though the character has been around since Avengers number 57 in 1968, he doesn't have many runs. Like he's on the West Coast Avengers, he's on the regular Avengers, he's on the new Avengers, he's always around. He's a handy hero, and he does what's right when they call on him, when they call him to action. But we never really get a deep dive into his psyche, his psychology, and how he lives his life. And when you think of comic books in general, especially, the big two and cape stuff, as people like to say, you think of these epics with this, mustache twirling villain in the background, and how our heroes are able to overcome and then defeat that glaring evil. But this kind of doesn't go that route. There isn't a really big mustache twirling villain in this. It's almost, would you say Vision is the villain of this?
I would say I would say the villain of this story is his own mind or their own minds, which actually is like an allegory for real life. Sometimes the villain of your story can be your own mind.
Right. And so you're dealing with this complex story where it's not the same beats that you would normally expect. And what I appreciate from this run and the Mr. Miracle run that he did that was so great is this juxtaposition over what's actually being said in the word bubbles and what you're seeing. And I feel like he does it way better here than he does in Batman. Maybe I'm biased, but
No, you're right. You're definitely right. Sometimes they like he has these techniques that he leans on, but sometimes they work better in short form stories than they do in a long one.
yeah. And this story read to me a lot of times like poetry. A lot of times it read in this like in these large florid ideas, really descriptive and stuff. And another cool thing about this is even though it's a moderately modern comic, there isn't really much backstory, a homework that you have to do in regards to the characters. Anything that they want you to know, they kind of let you know. They kind of let you know the relationship between Scarlet Witch and his relationship with Grim Reaper, his relationship with Ultron, his relationship with the Avengers.
Simon Williams.
Yes, with Simon Williams.
Yep.
I actually didn't know that part. I thought maybe I did a little bit, but I wasn't 100% sure that was actually Simon Williams. What brainwaves, right? That they said they used.
Yeah, yep. That was one of the like. The only reason I know that is because I remember like I don't remember where this was, but I remember that Vision was dealing with the like whether he actually loved Scarlet Witch because he loved her or because because Simon Williams loved Scarlet Witch. You know, Simon Williams for a long time had his own crush on Scarlet Witch, and when those brainwaves were used to create Vision sentience,
Yeah,
Vision it was a good question. You know, do I actually love her or like is this Simon Williams?
yeah. And this like robot, uh, or android synthesoid. I don't want to offend them, but
Don't be racist.
yeah, you understand this idea of like what's sentience, what's humanity. It's a really big idea in science fiction. Like we've seen things like I, Robot tackle it. Rick and Morty kind of does the existential crisis of robots finding out that they're alive and they're only meant to do one certain thing. Maybe um, Blade Runner deals with this Westworld, whether if things have memories and emotions and they can feel pain, does that make them real? We have things like Data in Star Trek, and whether logical. Are humans logical? Like, is that idea also because we claim to be the smartest, biggest, toughest species, right? That's the reason why we get to pick and choose what we eat, and why we're the kings of the jungle in many retrospects. But what I liked about this book was in many ways it showed that one of the most human things about us is our ability to be illogical and use
That's a yep.
and
That
you
was definitely one.
yeah and you
Oh, sorry about that.
but also like use logic to be illogical. like making it up in our own minds that, oh yeah, this is what people do or this is what we should be doing in this. um and I
I
thought that.
guess
Go ahead, bro.
before we get too far ahead, I guess I wanted to put this question out there because it's one of the themes in the book, like you were just saying. A lot of one of the common things I see is that what makes us human is our sense of self. You know, we are aware of what we are,
Yeah.
and so it's like a loaded question, right? But what do you believe? Like, does if we create something that eventually ends up developing a sense of self, is that true sentience?
Right, and is that true living? It's a hard question to answer because it reminded me. I was it iRobot. It was one of those ones where they build a robot and then that robot builds other robots, and it's like, well, then that robot is the father of those other robots, right? Like the same way that they talk about Ultron as like grandfather and all the other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's weird. It's like um, what's crazy about this book is that I think it tackles so many really heavy questions, philosophical questions like the one you just asked, without ever really giving us a clear cut answer. When you talk about like what would make sentience, or what makes something normal, what makes something alive, it harkens back to this one thing that they keep drumming up in this story, right? And it's the idea that Vision has saved the world, what, 37 times.
37 times.
And
Yes.
he repeats that over and over again, and it's almost like he's repeating it because to him, logically, that should make him immune to everything, immune to criticism, immune to robotism, immune to anyone feeling any bad way. Like he looks back and he thinks like, why am I not normal? Why am I not looked as the same? When push came to shove, I went out of my way and I saved this world 37 times. Like what else do I have to do? And it also goes to show like how we face this problem in social issues where people will be like, well, you don't think I'm human because I'm this race or I'm this creed, this color, this sexuality. Well, what if I try to assimilate? What if I try to make it normal? And then what usually happens is we move the goalpost further, right? We say, oh, a robot can't be human. They don't have a family. And then the robot gets a family. And you go, well, they can't be human because they don't get this. And it just keeps seeming like the more they move in the goalpost, the more Vision is trying to move it as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so it's because I don't have a family. Well, now I got a family. Oh, it's because we don't sit down and have mundane dinners. Well, I can do that too. Oh, they don't go to school? Well, we'll send them to school. Like, none of this stuff is
I
logical.
thought I
Go ahead, brother.
I thought there was a great scene later on in the book where you see the synthezoids, the visions, they don't eat. But it was suggested, why don't we go out to a restaurant? Oh yeah, we don't eat. And then he's like, you know what? No. I would absolutely love to do that. He's just, this entire book, he's just striving for this feeling of normalcy. It's so tragic.
Yeah. And you see how he is alone, or like in his most vulnerable moments. These are things that he's worrying about. And while the daytime is out, and while the sunshine is burning, he's out there doing his 9 to 5. But the true darkest moments, the true saddest moments, the true most introspective moments are when he's alone, which again is very human. That's very right. Like, I'll just do what I gotta
Yes.
do. I'll be on the grind, work the grindstone, and then I won't have to worry about life. I just do what I'm told and be where I'm supposed to be until you're home, until the lights are off, until you're in bed, and then it becomes, well, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I, doing these things? What did you think of the overall idea of Vision making a family? Like, has that fallen in line with anything that you've read before about the character?
Well, I know that I even spoke about this in the book, but it was one of the things that I thought of immediately. Like, well, does he still have this lingering love of like Scarlet Witch? Like when the book first started, I was like, man, he's created this whole family. And then they actually mention how the wife Virginia has preloaded memories that she would look into, and sometimes they make her cry. And I wondered, where does the preloaded memories come from? They come from Scarlet Witch. So that's what I told myself just straight from the beginning. Eventually, it is revealed where everything comes from. But I was just like, is this? It just goes to show how human he already was
Yeah.
before he went around to creating a family. He already had this feeling of something missing because he has already felt love. I mean, I know they some people forget this, but like him and Scarlet Witch, they had a family.
Yeah, they did.
They had kids. They were created by chaos magic, but they were kids, you know? So and the feeling of missing that, of longing for that, he was already human. So for him to come around and make this family for himself, it just adds more layers of tragedy onto this already sad story.
No, it's a good point that you say that, because you would think, for the most part, a Vision book would be Vision is a robot. He's a fish out of water. We're gonna see him make a bunch of stumbles trying to be human or trying to fit in with humans, and the comic relief will come from the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing, and that like every other robot movie ever made, right? Like every other robot
Yeah,
trying to be
exactly.
sentient. But in the weird contrast in this story is the idea that Vision is assimilated. That Vision can walk into a room full of humans and make them comfortable with him, and talk the small talk that they need to talk, or understand the weird sensibilities that humans have. Whereas all his family are fish out of water, and they're the ones that are drowning, trying to figure out what am I here for? Why did this guy make me? They used an analogy later on. I like when they were going over like the cool stuff in his house, like the vibranium piano
Yes.
and the everbloom tree. But they talk about the water vase, the water vase of Zen La, where it's something of the fact where like it's poisonous to plants, so like no plant could ever actually be
So
inside
what's
the
the
vase.
point? Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
what's
what's
the
the point
point?
of its existence?
Yeah,
That's
and it screams it's the same thing with the visions, but even with humanity, like I've heard people say, I don't want to have kids. Why you don't want to have kids? I don't want to bring them into this world. I don't want to bring them into what they perceive to be a wrong world. If they're not going to be happy all the time, why even put them on this earth? And that's a profound question. Like if you cannot guarantee the 100% safety and happiness of your children, what does that place in your mind as to the outcome of whether or not you want to have kids? And in this instance, Vision knew. I mean, if he has the computations of a regular computer and logic sensors and all that kind of stuff, he had to have known that no clear cut good was going to come out of this. Like no, well,
he
cookie
he
cutter.
knew he knew it was illogical. It's
Yeah,
illogical to have a family. It's illogical on so many levels. It's illogical for a robot to have a family. It's illogical for people to have a family in an
yeah,
environment where it's not safe. You know, it's that's why I love the idea of the vase that they got from Silver Surfer, because it's just like you said earlier, the idea that you can find some humanity in illogical things.
yeah.
So I'm sure that he thought to himself, I know that this is illogical, but being illogical is being human, and if that's what it takes, then here we are.
As I one of the other really human moments. Well, I guess we should just get into all of what is The Vision by Tom King. And I like that the two volumes that were in this set are Little Worse Than Man and Little Better Than Beast, which is like those are things that people have used to describe other, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
And usually when they use those kind of terms, they use them so that they're able to do really, really terrible things to them. And so this is written by Tom King, drawn by Gabriel Hernandez Walter, even though issue 7, that flashback issue, is drawn by Michael Walsh. It was
I thought that.
oh, did you like that? That
I liked that they used a different artist for that particular issue because of the nature of that issue. It was connected to the story, but only in that it was uh it was needed to like flesh out some backstory.
Yeah. And the issue series like this do take issue sometimes to do some backstory or just like a tangential story, but this still felt 100% like necessary reading to understand all of this. Like even though the artist changed and a lot of it was done in the past, it really really felt um like you were getting a metric ton of insight to what was going on when just going back. I love
It's
with DC and
actually
Marvel when they
my
go.
favorite issue.
Is it really?
Yeah, but I like the like it was hard to like pinpoint, what my favorite part was, but there's this I guess let's get into it because I don't want to jump ahead for the people that are just using for that are listening without having read yet. I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. So let's
Yeah. Cause I'm finding myself doing the same thing, and it's just I did find out. I knew of Viv. I didn't know that she debuted in this. This is her first time we see her.
Mhm.
In Marvel Comics is in this story, and what a tragic story for Viv, right? Like
Oh man.
we'll get there in a second, but I love that it opens up with the narration that you were talking about, and then it deals with we're dealing with humans and how humans will deal with other, and how humans have dealt with other for a very long time, and you have this situation of like, should we even get them cookies? Do they eat cookies? They're a bunch of toasters, and that stuff. Were you ever taken aback by humanity's view on these robots or synthesoids?
I don't know that I was so much taken aback as much as I'm like the humanity does this every day. And we don't even have synthesoids in real life. We treat each other like this.
Yeah,
So they would, if we did have synthesoids, people would absolutely react just the way that society reacts in this story.
yeah. And so you see, we from there, there's hate crimes actually done to them. We see people have the confidence to go up to them and take a selfie, but a lot of people just do it from the bushes. And we see that Vision himself seems pretty happy with this family. He doesn't mind, sharing them around and introducing them, and they do all the small talk and stuff. But my first inkling that things aren't 100% great in Pleasantville is when they get into their most logical argument ever. where it's like you don't call them kind, you call them nice, or they don't seem kind, they seem nice.
And and it's crazy because they're a bit robotic in their discussions about that, but then at the same time, I've got myself asking myself these questions now.
Yeah.
Like,
No, and even like even though they're both using the logic center of their brain, they're still able to correct each other with nuance, which is what we do in our relationships, right? Like we'll be like,
yep,
oh, that was good, but it wasn't great, And it's like,
yep.
well, I thought it was good. So if what is good to me, what is good to you, and all that, and the fact that he says something like, well, then the phrase is meaningless, and then he's like, well, to assert truth which has no meaning is the core mission of humanity. And I'm like, wow, you
That.
really think highly of us, bro. But it just shows like the that it is the parts of us that are unsharpened and a little out of whack. Those are seemingly the ones that he wants to take on the most. And maybe he got that sense from Wanda, because Wanda is kind of sort of an emotional mess.
Oh yeah, that's what that was one of the things that I told myself where in the beginning of the story I started thinking, Vision is if Vision's got his brainwaves from a person, then that means that Virginia's got her brainwaves from someone, and if she did it, most likely it's Scarlet Witch. And if it's Scarlet Witch, is that the best person to model another sentient being after? Because she's got her own issues.
And when did you take that When did you take those brainwaves and sentience? Was it when she was like going crazy about her children? Was it when she did the No
Yep,
More
yep.
Mutants fiasco? That lady has had enough problems. And that idea, like, I found myself very sad every time we went back to Virginia, because she almost didn't understand why this overarching feeling of dread was constantly on her.
She didn't. I
She
think that one of the things that I really liked, like you were mentioning earlier, is how she's just constantly questioning Vision. Like, if you say that this mission is meaningless, this mission of life is meaningless, then why do you insist that why do you insist that we're doing this?
Yeah.
And I think that paradoxical way of living was one of the things that I don't want to say broke Virginia. She wasn't broken, but it's just one of the things that really really screwed her.
It just doesn't. It literally makes no sense, right?
It
Like,
does.
it doesn't make any sense.
I love this one quote from the Vision where he's like, the pursuit of an unattainable purpose by absurd means is the way of freedom.
And it's
It's
like,
like,
what? But it comes from the thought that he was originally created, as he says, right before that sentence, he says, the pursuit of a set purpose by logical means is the way of tyranny. That's how Ultron created me. And he's like, Ultron created me with a logical purpose, go handle that, and that's what tyrants do. But a real person, a way of freedom, is to just have a dream and then use weird ways to accomplish that dream.
yep.
And it's like, when all these things are, I mean, literally psychology classes are filled with people with all kinds of questions and theories and stuff. And so to see a robot try to encapsulate human existence in a sentence, it's like, really, bro? That's what you think? Like, clear cut. We see that they have brought their children into one of the most profound schools in Virginia. He lives by the White House. He's like the DC liaison. He wears a nice little suit and tie. He
Yeah, I
goes and
think
hangs out.
yep.
What do you think about Vision's DC job?
I think that of all the people that that the Avengers would want to be the liaison between them and Washington D.C., it would be the very logical, the very robotic Vision. Where some of the Avengers might have problems controlling their emotions when it comes to things like dealing with diplomacy and things like that. Vision would just be able to, take take the information he's been given and bringing it back to Avengers Tower and tell you what they think.
Yeah. And that even speaks to a whole nother thing. Like I said, this book is like a Russian nesting doll of like themes and ideas, because Vision would be the perfect Avenger, because for the most part he'd never complain, right? He would never be like, why am I stuck here? Why you got me doing this mundane task? Why do you have me doing, the light work or the bureaucracy part of the Avengers? Vision is built to do what he's told, kind of, And it's this idea. Before you had said that something broke Virginia, and I like this idea of broken and unbroken. Later on in this book, we see Viv get, I think, viciously attacked. Even though it's a robot, I think that the gore is played for a reason. For you to have like this
Yeah.
outward
So
reaction of like, oh my god, even though it'd be the same thing like stabbing a refrigerator or stabbing a washing machine. But we become so attached to these people that we see this humongous display of violence, and we see that Viv is like literally injured, and later on, Vision goes to great lengths to physically repair her and get her back to being quote unquote normal, back to being okay, back to being alive. What I find is weird is that, and this is maybe Tom King's overarching feelings of like mental health, and we've seen him tackle topics like PTSD before. And as a former soldier, what this read to me was this idea that Viv got the exact treatment she needed right away, because you could see her what was broken. You can see that the literal scythe went through her chest, or and that needed to be fixed. Virginia is literally breaking in every issue a little bit more. She's stuttering. Her logic is being thrown off. She's not making sense. She's breaking things. She's hurting people. And at no point does Vision go to fix her, to check on her, to run to that aid and be like, oh, there's obviously something wrong that we need to fix.
that says a lot about us too in real life, where we somebody breaks an arm, somebody loses a girlfriend or something. You can see it, but there are the people that are broken on the end, or that are breaking every single day, then that live next to us or sleep next to us sometimes, and we don't even notice it.
Yeah, and it sends them down this spiral. And what makes it even worse, and I know we've all been there at certain points in our lives, is this idea of then the realization that we might be broken, the realization that there might be something wrong with us, and then that urge to want to be normal. At various points, she literally just repeating, everything's okay, everything's okay, everything's okay, it's all normal, it's all good. And she's saying it, almost trying to convince herself while unraveling. Like this woman at many points is just sitting at a table alone or staring at the window alone. And I'm like, poor thing, but she has no other purpose. Her purpose is to serve Vision and to serve the family.
So we're actually in issue 1. There was this great scene where Vision, where first they're supposed to be sleeping, but then we're also explained that the Visions don't sleep. They don't need to recharge because their power comes from the sun, but they do shut down at night so that they can process the day's input and eliminate which is unessential. So it's their version of sleeping. Again, another version of them just trying to be normal, even though they don't have to. Exactly. And Vision is like questioning himself, like, why are we doing this? Like, if I can't feel, if I'm not supposed to feel, why do I feel this dread right now in the middle of the night? Like, man, what's going on?
And that dread, bro, I'm telling you, one of the, the writing is amazing, the art is fantastic, all the themes are amazing, but one of the things that makes this book click for me is that weird, like, sort of like ominous narrator that, like, that's like the Visions are walking down the street. Too bad in a week there'll be no street to walk down, and you'll be like, "What?
Oh man,
Wait,
that was
what's going on?"
That's one of the things that threw me off right in the beginning of the story, where we're still in like Pleasantville mode, and we're being introduced with the neighbors, George and his wife, and they're like arguing about the cookies, and they're like, towards the end of the story, George and his wife will die in a fire. His last, her last thought will be, his last thought will be of the love that he had for her and how much time he wasted. Her last thought will be of the water vase.
Yeah, and it's like, what?
It's like, yo.
Oh my God, that narrator, adds a level of cognitive dissonance to this that is needed, because it breaks that logic center, because we are creatures of habit, and so certain things are automatically gonna elicit an emotional reaction towards us. And while we want the protagonist or the person that we're in the shoes of to have that same emotional reaction, it never comes. I mean, eventually Vision gets emotional towards the end of the book, but from the narrator, they never pick a side. It's always, well, this happened, and that's the factual thing that happened. The sun rose, the trees fell, and the birds chirped, and that's it. It's not how there really isn't any nuance in it. And so whenever they're like, later on, Viv has a conversation with a boy in school, and it's like, although she won't live long, Viv goes on to play this conversation many times in her head.
That would hurt too.
Yeah,
That would hurt because I'm like,
oh my gosh.
you know. But talking about Viv being in mortal danger, right? To the end of the first issue, where as we mentioned before, Simon Williams, Wonder Man, is his brainwaves were used to make Vision. So Simon Williams' brother, the Grim Reaper, is actually who attacks Viv. He sticks his Grim Reaper scythe right in her chest, and Virginia, with a very human reaction, kills the Grim Reaper to save her. Well, to stop him from harming her son after he already harmed her daughter.
Yep.
But now this is the beginning of her spiral.
And she kills him with the cookie sheet that the neighbors
that's right.
That the neighbors brought over, which was pretty funny. And right when that scene happens, the narrator, again, cold as hell, is just like, a comment of Virginia's about Viv's use of passive voice in the essay on Arabic translation movement seemed to upset Viv. She got up from the table and moved towards the kitchen. And then you turn the page and it goes, that's when the blade went through her. And you're like, wow. And she does, the mom, Virginia, she has a very human moment where she goes to defend her child at the expense of the Grim Reaper and kills the Grim Reaper. But then very much like in a human sitcom or something says, like, don't tell your father. Like, that's not.
She actually lost herself in that moment of emotion where she kept bashing and bashing and bashing the Grim Reaper's head in. So we're to the point where her own son, who she was protecting, is like, Mom, he's dead. That's it. So, and like you said, then it jumps to like back to Pleasantville, and she's like, your father can't find out about this.
And it's the weird thing of like the weird horrifying aspect of Viv on the floor just saying like mother. Like,
oh my God.
These are machines for the most part. But wow, like I'm feeling already issue 1. I'm like, I feel bad for Viv. I feel scared for the family. I don't know how I'm supposed to be taking what's going on with Virginia because she, what does it mean for a robot to lie? Why lie? Do you lie out of fear? What does that mean? What are you scared of? All that kind of stuff. But we don't have to deal with that right away because we deal with her actually lying to Vision and him visualizing everything that she's telling him. And what I like is that as she's telling the story from her side, she's like, yeah, he tried to slash me and then I phased through him. And he's like, yeah, it tickled, didn't it? And she was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, when he slashes through me, it tickles. And she's like, yeah, it tickled.
I'm almost certain that he knew she was lying. But he needed to convince himself that this is, what, she I don't know if maybe he was, because he created his family, maybe he still had thoughts of them as creatures that can't lie or something like that. But
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that he knew she was lying. But another thing that we were going to deal with in this issue was how Vin reacts to Viv's to what happens to Viv. He's going through things now.
Yeah, he was already dealing with his own stuff. Kids are constantly poking and prodding at both of these children and asking, "Are you normal?" And later on, we go through literally people looking up mean things to call them because they don't really, it doesn't roll off the tongue, so they're all looking up for like racial stuff to say about robots.
Yeah, they're looking for robot slurs.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is, the hate goes deep. But a guy will end up knowing later on as CK shows up to to the lunchroom and is like, "Hey, your sister's my lab partner. She's not coming in today, right?" And he's like, "Nope, she doesn't feel well. She's out." And he's like, "Well, does she have a number I can call her?" And he's just like keep repeating himself of like, "She's out. She's ill. She's out. She's ill." And he just starts to ramp up the aggression and just be an obnoxious kid of like, "Hey, I'm not asking all that. I'm just saying, do you have her number? What's your problem?" All this other kind of stuff. And again, so beautifully, the text versus the subtext. Everything that you're seeing there, you're seeing Vin choke out a adolescent child, an adolescent boy in a lunchroom full of people. But the background is just talking about how Vin and Viv would have conversations about how synthezoids and humans are probably more alike than they should be, or not alike at all. And so you get this weird thing of uh like humans are like robots because you could hit this one vein in the neck and they'll shut right
I
off.
feel like it's a double thing there because he's like synthezoids are like humans. They've got this off switch right here, but at the same time, synthezoids are like humans because look at what he's going through. He just crushed an apple in his hand based off like his emotions.
Yeah.
He was dealing with emotions. He's very human.
He acted out.
He acted out exactly.
Um, One of my favorite parts of this book is the I guess you call it the parent principal.
Oh yeah, the
Meeting
conference.
conference. I never had so much like fear and arousal and respect for Vision than I do in these series of panels where he's like, "I've saved the world. Like, what do you think this is? Like, who do you think I am? I'm not just gonna let you like punish my son to the full extent of the law. You're gonna punish him like you would punish any other kid because my kids are any other kid." And I am Vision of the Avengers. I have saved this planet 37 times. Each day you live, each day, each breath you take, each beat of your heart, each is due to my actions 37 times over. And I don't know if it's just the lack of pupils or what it is but whenever he wants to like stoically just state his point, where you can feel that there's might behind it, but he doesn't want to act physically, it's intimidating.
Oh, it is. It is. And I thought I thought again like dealing with this theme of the principal the being forced into accepting these kids, I didn't want that. It just reminds me of like the environment today.
Yeah.
Like we had to accept these immigrant kids even though I don't want them,
Or think about being a straight principal where you have gay students.
Exactly.
You may not understand their path or their plight, but now they're here, and the problems that you deal with bigotry come along with that. And so to many people, instead of just saying, "Oh, I wish these problems weren't here," they go, "Oh, I wish those people weren't here." Because if those people weren't here, then the problems won't be. And it's the same thing here where it's like, "Oh, all these kids are entitled brats that treat anyone that's other than them like scum." But it's your kids that's the issue. Let's kick your kids out of school. And it's crazy, and it happens again, right? It says like, "Well, maybe if the principal acted then, maybe he could have saved the world." And it's like, wait, what's going on? What's gonna happen? What do you keep hinting at? What craziness is gonna go on? And you'd have the regular kind of mundane conversation about like what they're gonna do with the kids and what they're gonna do with themselves, and that they love each other, and let's go on, let's move forth, let's be merry. And then you find out that Virginia's being blackmailed.
Oh, that was messed up. But I knew that the burial was gonna come back to haunt them anyway because I think that we forget to mention like after she after she killed the Grim Reaper, she buried his body in the backyard.
Just in the
So
backyard, like
just
I love that. I love that the cover of the next issue is her like trying to sweep him under the rug, sweep his dead body under the rug or whatever, and it's just that, like just covering it up. And real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about that whole idea of like us versus the other. There's a quote in this book that says, "You cannot hate what you don't know. They don't know you, therefore they're incapable of hating you. Perhaps I might concede that they hate the idea of you, but if this is true, then your task is a simple one. You must merely have to show them that you are not that idea." And many times in this book, every member of the Vision family goes out of their way to show that they should not be feared, and the result is frightening. the result is something that people are like, no, that's exactly why. That's exactly why we're scared of you. It's because of stuff like that. And it it was this a futile mission? Like at the end of the day,
I, I mean, I don't want. I don't. I understand the feeling of wanting a family, and I wouldn't say it's futile because I mean, he got what he wanted. You know,
yeah,
not all the way though. As we'll talk about later on, things got really crazy. This experiment of his, or maybe it wasn't an experiment so
yeah,
much as it was just him trying to find a new way of life. But I don't know that it was futile because like he ended up he you know as people who read Marvel comics right now know, Viv exists in the Marvel universe. He's got his daughter now. He's
yeah.
still got his so he definitely got what he wanted out of it.
He got family. He got his own
It just
personal.
he just
Yeah,
went through he just went through a lot to get there. But I mean that again that's very human. We go through a lot to
that's a very human
yep.
experience.
We
You
go
know,
through a lot to get what we want.
to open yourself up to love is to open yourself up to heartbreak. It's both sides of that same coin. And for every great moment that was achieved with this family was a incredible setback that could have, broken the sanity of normal people. And you actually see the sanity of a synthesoid snap, literally unravel. And for many reasons, but one of them I would have to believe is the idea that no one saw it or no one took time to see it. And that's very real to me when we talk about like mental health and all those kind of things like that, like somebody unraveling at the seams. um and to bring it back to what I was saying before, this idea that they would use Vision because he doesn't complain. What is normal? Is normal just not to complain? You know what I'm saying? Like, is normal just to be out of sight, out of mind? Is that what you think of as normal? Like, to be a normal robot is definitely that, right? To just act and don't question, to never, doubt or, wonder. It's just all facts and figures. It's all numbers in your head that you're just crunching. And so stuff like depression, which is very human at this point. We are diagnosing it, and we're trying to work on it and spread the awareness of mental health and stuff. But if you're trying to be human, do you take that with you? Does depression come with you? Is that a part of normalcy when it comes to being a human? Dread, a fear, pain, suffering. Are these things what make us human? And
Oh,
do you need them to be in a robot or a synthesoid
that's
for
a
the authentic?
great that's a great segue to the next scene where Vision is working to bring his daughter to heal his daughter, right? And he's working with Tony Stark,
Yeah,
and there he's phased into her body, and now they have to run a current through him into her. And Tony, being the genius that he is like, just turn off your pain receptors. But and that actually that lends to a question like, how do the Avengers view Vision? Do they understand that he's a human, or like do they see him as a robot?
yeah. In this instance, you have to believe at the very least that Tony has at least a soft spot for his plight, right? But is this Tony humoring him, or is this Tony actually believing him? Is this Tony just going like, "Oh yeah,
He's humoring him for sure because Tony is like he's smart. He would know whether or not Vision needed his pain receptors on to complete the task of reviving Viv. Well, not reviving her; she wasn't dead, but repairing her.
yeah,
And he's like, you know what? Whatever you want, I'll do it anyway. And I think that goes to show that Vision just wants to be human, no matter what it takes, even if it hurts.
yeah."
I just want to be. I just want to be normal.
Later on, they talk about, like, he talks about what he considers a kind of illogical and depressing cycle of life, of parents constantly sacrificing for their kids, and there's kids growing up and sacrificing for their kids. And even though it doesn't make sense to him, it very much to him is human existence. And so to live in human existence, again, to not to be the dead horse, is to be illogical, to have no to have, for some of this stuff not to make sense, because we are so ruled in emotion. And he does have emotion for these family members. He does have love and appreciation for these family members. And in this instance, he's the mother that could pick up a car, right, to
Yeah.
save his daughter's life. And I love the whole Tony Stark. You are my colleague. You are my fellow Avenger. You are my oldest friend. But if you touch that button, I will kill you.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
I believe him. I believe him. I believe him in that moment. I believe him in that instance. And um, I think that with this, with Tony Stark's appearance in this, you start to really get the beginnings of what's going on over there with those visions. Like you start getting the beginnings of should we be kind of worried? Like we know you're doing your own project, but you just ran out the house, with a half broken daughter, and now you're telling me, I need to electrocute you to keep her alive, and this is something that means that much to you. Like, what does this all mean? What does this mean for the rest of us? And there's a, he, Vision or Viv comes back to life, and they hug and they embrace, and they're happy to see each other, and they're happy to have beaten death, and loss. But Tony's face reads like, like like I don't really know what's going on here, and I like that, I like that Tony, who is so well versed in all things AI and technology, is starting to see the flaws, which again are very human, in this machine, and
he almost looks like disgusted by what's going on. Like
yeah,
Vision brings Viv back. She's alive. She stops saying mother, 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 and then father, I'm back. And they make it a point to focus on Tony's face, and he's looking at them hugging, and he's like, well, what the heck is going on? And then the narration makes it a point to point out, like, later, Captain America asks Iron Man how it all went, and he says, fine, bad, normal. I mean, everything was normal, you know?
and then again that idea of normal, yeah, that would be like if this was a father at a hospital, all the gamut of emotions, fear, anger, all that stuff that Vision was showing. That is all normal, but again, constantly this idea of what is normal in this instance, in this moment, in this with these people, what is normal, and you humans don't get to do what they did. Humans don't get to cheat death like that. We do have surgeries and emergency situations and the miracles of modern medicine, but Vision in an instance was able to bring something back. Like bring something back from the brink, and later on when he's not able to, you can almost see the heartbreak. This idea that everything's fixable, and this other idea that they were postulating later on in the story of NP not being P. You remember that whole thing
Yeah,
again?
it's like P is a problem that's solvable, and NP is a problem that isn't solvable easily, right? P is a problem that you can find the shortcut to solve, and NP is a problem that would be more difficult. So, like, are all P problems eventually, are all NP problems eventually P problems? And if they aren't, then like, how hard is it to actually solve one of these NPs? Um, I actually really like that. I really like that because that's like one of the things in a story that's like, deal with this type of stuff in real life, you
Yeah,
know?
and and also the idea that, like I was saying before, Vision makes a family. Does a normal robot family cause no problems slash peas, right? Did he think when he made these guys that everything was going to be smooth sailing? Does having peas problems, does that make them more human? Does that make the family experience richer? Because we do in our regular lives go through problems of all sorts and sizes. Sometimes we feel like we have the answer right away. Sometimes we don't. But the thing is, we are conditioned as humans to know that these things are going to come, right? We know we're going to have problems, and it's about getting through to them. I don't know if Vision knew that they would be facing so many problems, especially problems like blackmail and murder and all this other kind of stuff. Like he seemed to have programs for everything but that, but the nuances of what imperfection does to people and introspection and all that kind of stuff. Um, Imagine that. Imagine every day waking up and crying and not knowing why, but
Oh
knowing
man.
that you have this feeling of just overall sadness and dread. Like, how does one live past that? Like, and so,
And that's a question that we can actually ask because there are people dealing with that every day.
oh no, you ain't lying.
Every day.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
lying. We got
Actually, we got shown Agatha Harkness, who was Scarlet Witch's mentor in the world and everything, Magic, who's dead now. So we're actually showing her in the afterlife, and by through her story, we finally begin to understand the purpose of the plant, the blue plant. I forgot the name of the plant,
The
but
Everbloom, ever
it's the Everbloom.
the
I think you're right
Wondagore,
about.
the Wondagore, the Everbloom of
It
Wondagore,
is.
something like that.
It is we'll call it the Everbloom because I know at least that part is right. But it's actually, if when you're reading this, you notice the Everbloom is ever present. It is
Yes.
always it's almost in every single issue. It is in multiple pages, and
Hmm.
we're finally shown the nature of this. Where it's like there's a folklore where if you eat one of the petals, you can see the future. And Scarlet Witch and Agatha used to laugh at people who would do this because they didn't understand the true nature of the plant. And in order to see the future, you have to first, you have to first, the
Be
petal
hungry, right? Yeah, you got to be
the
hungry.
petal actually has to be eaten twice.
Yeah.
You eat it first, and then you kill something, and you eat it again, and that's how you can see the future. So eventually, actually, that's the explanation for the narrative, be knowing what's going on in the future. So we that I thought that was pretty. There's a message there that I'm still trying to figure out about the petal eating it first and then having to kill something in order to see the future.
But and also the idea that they expressed later on, which is that people will get sick just trying to get a glimpse of the future, like just trying to forget what's actually happening right now. Because tourists used to go around and try to pick these petals, and people would like they didn't realize that they had to do this ritual. And so they would eat the petals. They tasted like crap, and then they would throw up all over at the airports and stuff. But it's this idea of the search for the future when the future is in your hands,
I I
kind of
guess
idea.
not enough people are willing to sacrifice what they have to in order to get to that future.
Yeah,
They want the easy way, which goes back to the NP problem versus the P problem.
yeah, yeah. And so we are shown and told a vision of the future. No, no pun intended. A vision of the future that ultimately does not come about because of individual choice. So regardless, right? You can take this. You can have the taste of the Everbloom, but if choices are made in between the present and the future, you could ultimately change the future. And um, the desperation, I guess, to just bypass all that and just let me know what's gonna happen. Like bypass all that. Let me know what's gonna happen. That's a very computer thing, right? That's a
And
very um
that's a very robotic thing, I
yes,
think.
yes, to just like
But
we
but
we we don't think of it as in like we have 24. I have 24 hours today. I have 24 hours tomorrow. I have 24 hours. A day can mean so much depending on the experience, the emotions that are had, what gets accomplished, all that kind of stuff. But logically, robotically, 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours. And in the same sense, Vision is living in existence. Um, Logically, he can just add up all the variables in his life and get to the answer of what's going to happen in 20 years. But instead, he'd much rather do the very human thing and figure out every day, as opposed
talk
to, yeah, ingesting some kind of magical flower and figuring it out at the end of the day.
talking about very human things. The very next scene, we get Vision, who was about to explain to his wife how there were some inconsistencies with her story about the Grim Reaper, being distracted by his wife Viv wanting to distracting him with like sex,
Yeah. Which
which
I
I
was
was
like,
like,
wait a minute. I was like, wait a
I
minute.
I didn't even know they had sex, but now I'm curious, like
The
how
thing
did
is,
that work?
the funny thing is, I didn't think they had sex. And like you said, obviously they seem to be pointing in that direction, right? But
Yeah, well, she's like getting, she clearly, like, she comes in, she drops she's got like sexy lingerie on to distract him, and clearly he's getting distracted, right? And then
yeah,
slowly the lingerie comes off, then comes off the panties, and then, she grabs him and pulls him closer and kind of shuts him up with a naked body and takes off his pants.
yeah.
So,
But
I
don't,
mean, I guess that in his search for humanity, this is a very human thing. You're gonna have to give these synthezoids um sexual body parts. And there's actually back in issue 1, what the neighbor points out, how he expected Vision to feel like a robot,
Uh-huh.
but they don't. They're not like, they don't feel like clangy steel. He
Oh, right,
says
right, yeah, yeah.
he says he feels like a sandwich bag or something.
Right, right.
So I'm like, I guess they do have sex, and being the pervert that I am, I'm like wondering, how does it work? I'm
But
gonna need to
but
ask Tom King.
being the logical pervert that I am, I would have to jump to the conclusion that it works perfectly, and not only does it work perfectly, but it's literally curated by the guy who's who's in it, right? Like
It's just
he's the one who gets to customize this wife to get like everything that she's doing. If he didn't want it, she wouldn't be doing it. She wouldn't be
I'm
like
almost
flirting and
I'm
all that other
almost
kind of stuff.
certain that he modeled her after Scarlet Witch 2, after Wanda. I'm pretty, like, body wise as well as mental.
Yeah, and we've seen
For
how
sure.
she can be quite the charmer, mistress.
Yeah.
But yeah, we the other juxtaposition that we get with that is the later on. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but the joke, right? The toaster joke,
Oh,
where
that was actually one of my favorite things of the book. Where like you were saying that there's a joke that he heard from Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, where it's like one toaster turns to the other toaster and says, "Hey, didn't you feel a little empty?" And then the toaster looks back at it and says, "Oh shit, a talking
talking
toaster."
toaster, yeah,
That-
and they crack up, but he tells the same joke to his new wife, which has the imprint of Scarlet Witch, and nothing. They don't laugh. They don't.
she's already heard the joke.
That's true. Yeah.
That's one of the things that they made a point to point out. It's like, when she would sit alone at night sometimes, or while Vision's at work, and she would look through her preloaded memories. That was one of the things that stuck it out.
What I also like. First of all, I pop every time they have an argument, just because of how logical the arguments are. They have a lot argument later on that sounded like shade that we say in normal relationships, which is like, um, didn't you say or whatever, whatever, and it's like, I told you this. Just go back and replay it. Like, can't you just replay the part where I told you the specific instructions to this? Or she says like, I sent you this and I know you saw it. Why haven't you responded or whatever? And I'm like, these guys are robots and they doing the same petty like.
But again, you got to remember, they're not robots.
That's true.
That's one of the themes of the book. Like, the idea of, we as humans, we assume, so we have all these assumptions and we expect them to fit inside of that box, but they don't, because they're not what we think they are.
How do you feel about the fighting Redskins?
I thought that was great. That was hilarious, because again, that's one of the themes of the book, was like, where people it's like racism, and like things like that, and in real life, one of the controversies was like the football team, the Chiefs, using that very racist that caricature, the logo, the Indian, that outdated racism, and Vision, who has to deal with this type of stuff every day, grabs the football out of the kids' hands, who actually were having this great conversation about trust versus faith.
Yeah.
And he just looks right into the soul of the reader, like, what is this logo?
He's almost asking us to answer for it. Like,
it is. What is this? What's your problem here?
and the Native American is obviously crudely drawn, but the complexion is almost the same as Vision, like that beet red kind of, like,
Actually, it's the same exact color.
And it's like it's to go show, like, and it's funny because he's angry at the kids, but the kids obviously didn't do this, right? This is obviously a bigger thing. The son says later on, like, oh, we have a new mascot. That's the old mascot, but they haven't been able to scrub. They haven't been able to get rid of all their bad paraphernalia. And he goes, yes,
I love
typical. That is typical of most human
because
endeavors.
as much as he is human, he's not gonna accept that part of humanity.
Yeah,
that's.
And he's like, there still are, no pun intended, monuments to atrocities out there.
Yep. Yeah, there are.
So, like, why are they not down yet? Well, because humans are still trying to take them down, tactfully. And so he's like, that means nothing. If you're treating humans like other, then you're just wrong. It's very logical, yes or no to him. It's not about complexion. It's not about race, creed, or code to him. Why would you ever characterize, make a caricature of a human being? Like that's hurtful. And these synthesoids feel a whole gamut of emotions. They feel shame. They feel disappointment. Um, and I guess that is to say that those things are part of the human experience. And so,
But there's also the idea that Vision is trying so hard to achieve normalcy that he's actually holding his kids back in some way.
yeah,
Just a little.
yeah,
Where they're like flying around playing football, and he's like, "Hey, we're trying to achieve normalcy here, and that doesn't include flying around." And I'm like, "Vision, you live on Earth 616. That's pretty damn normal."
yeah.
You know,
Well,
like,
another thing is like he says that now, but he's lived decades at this point, and he's done a numerous amount of he's had numerous amount of experiences. So to
I would say
bring new
about
life,
actually like a decade and a half, maybe, because
okay,
I think like the Marvel sliding timeline is funny. Everything. Like everything starts with the Fantastic Four, and that takes
60s.
place now. I think like post 9/11.
Oh wow.
Now, yeah, due to the timeline sliding forward, I think now that takes place post 9/11. So Vision would have been alive, I want to say like 15 years or something like that.
Okay, I dig that. But he's been
Mm.
able to explore the nooks and crannies of existence
Oh,
and
absolutely.
what
That's
he's
long
doing.
enough.
Yeah, so to bring something new on Earth and then be like, don't question anything, do what I say, is, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot
That's also pretty. That's also some things that some parents get. That's like a very parental, like.
yeah. Yeah, like what is it? I don't care what your dreams are. You need to be safe and have all your fingers and toes, and
Hmm.
you need to be, you need to be okay. I am much more interested slash worried in your physical well being as I am everything else. And
Yep.
that's that idea of out of sight, out of mind, right? Your kids are
But
yeah, my kids are okay. They're not complaining, so they got to be okay.
I thought it's. I thought a pretty sad thing was watching Vision tell his kids, try so hard to be normal, try to be normal, and no matter how much they try, in the very next page they go back to school and they're like looked at like freaking like weirdos. And then that's where the quote that you mentioned earlier about them hating the idea of the synthezoids instead of knowing them. That's where that comes in. Where it's
Yeah,
like now we've got to show these people
yeah.
that we're not what they think we are.
And maybe that's the juxtaposition that this issue in particular was going for, because you do get the moment of Vision lowering his guard and attempting to throw the football like a synthesoid would, he does engage in the flying around with his children, and in that moment they all seem so happy because they are not denying who they are. They're not denying, what they're capable of. And so the idea that you would ever have to stifle any part of your personality to make others feel okay, um, that's very real, right? That's very human. That's very pick a subset
That's very
of
human.
yeah,
Yeah.
and people have been doing that since the dawn of time. Like I know I like this, but I will be a little quiet about my like for this because it might bother some people. Now we live in a much more appreciative world where people can just be who they are and scream at the top of their lungs. But um, I was having
I
this conversation where it's weird how the idea of normal is always an outsider's perspective. Like you look at something and go, "That's normal," but walk up to that person, couple, and ask them, and they'll probably be like, "No, it's not. I want normal." And that's normal, and they'll point to something else.
that's
Normal is
that's
always an
my
obtainable thing in the windshield that you're going
exactly.
towards. Yeah,
It's not. I don't think that normal even exists. No, normal is, I guess, just live your life the way you want to.
yeah,
Normal is not something you should strive for.
yeah,
Normal is something that just is.
yeah,
Live your life and don't try to fit into anybody else's box.
yeah. And that this is they I think they're really trying to express that. But you can see the outsiders that
It
are
started to it started to work, as you can see, like right now, like right after that, you see that the boy who Vin choked out earlier for asking him for getting aggressive with him is now like I understand what he was mean. I understand what he was saying, what Vin was saying, because I've had partnerships with you, Viv, and you're actually really cool, and like I really enjoy being, like I enjoy partnering with you. Actually, he has a specific conversation that Viv takes with her for the rest of her life.
Man, that was the most like walk to remember esque moment of this book. Like
Yes.
it was poignant. It was sad. It was like kind of giddy too. Like you can tell that she was enjoying even the little flirtation that's going on, the little bit of attention, the little bit of curiosity towards her and her life. You can tell that she enjoyed it, and that
He
whole
was
like
trying to
the rain goes right through
understand.
me. Like that.
Yeah, he was trying to understand her. That was great. Like that's what we need to strive for as a people. We
Yeah,
just try to understand the person next to you. Where he's like, doesn't this rain bother you, or are you like a robot or something? Like, and she's like, well, it goes right through me. Again, that's on so many levels. That's so cool because like, don't these insults bother you? Doesn't what these people think of you bother you? Man,
yeah,
that goes right through me.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like at every point, you think that you got what's on the page, but it legitimately has three or four alternate meanings in the narrative of everything that's being done here, and that's why I like that. Every time that you think you're gonna get something profound out of a big splashy page of like action and stuff, it usually isn't in this story. It's when they're quiet. It's when they're it's just two people walking, or like now, two people on the phone. Where it's like where they're having this argument, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, my love. I didn't mean to tell you that you weren't important. I'm just saying that I work for the Avengers and I gotta go to work. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my god. But even then, like her worrying about that, and her worrying about getting caught up for the murder, and her worrying about just like it almost also showed like where you get these caricatures of like these 1950s housewives that were never
Yeah,
given
like a Stepford wife.
yeah, but also the ones that were never given any gumption to do anything else but serve the family.
Yeah, in a way, that was like a product of the 50s too. They were
Yeah,
very that it was post-war. The women were the society was switching women back to their position where they were before the war, even though they had just spent 10 years like working for the family because the husband was gone. So it's
yeah,
like some women took that better than others did, you know. But
definitely.
and even though that was an inspiration for Viv here, I don't think that she falls into that category though.
Hmm.
As she works like she's dealing with so much, and she's just dealing with so much and honestly, sometimes I don't even know if she knows why.
That's the worst part about it. And isn't how much of human suffering is that, right? Why? Why me? Why this? Why now? And she deals with that. I do like her sneaking off trench coat. She has a sneak. She has a very stylish. I'm sneaking off. Maybe she saw that was very human.
I was worried that someone was gonna blackmail her like sexually. I was like so worried because I'm like,
Really?
are they?
Oh, because like the
I was
Flash's
out.
coat.
Yeah, yeah, and they had just did the scene where they introduced the fact that they do have sex, and I was like, oh no,
Yeah,
where are we going with this? And then she sneaks out of the house, she gets to the other house, and the guy's like this big chubby creeper looking through it, and I'm like, oh no, where are we going?
Oh, and then the first thing he does is be like, "Yeah, I got a gun, and I know how to use it, and I will use it." And it's like,
I
calm
was like,
down,
oh
bro.
no.
Calm down, bro. But we find out that this is CK's pops.
Yeah, this is CK's pops, the boy that was trying to understand Viv. And he hears the conversation between Viv and his pops, where he's like, "Listen." Even the pops is like, it's like just concerned for himself and his kids because he was just going over to talk to the Visions
Yeah,
about what happened in school, and then he sees her burying a dead body in the backyard, and he's like, "Listen, I don't want to take this to the news. I don't want to take this anywhere. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you guys to leave."
yeah.
I just want you guys to leave. And Viv does not accept this. And he pulls out his gun because she's getting closer and closer. And then he shoots. And because she's a Vision, it phases right through her. And unfortunately, CK's right behind her. And
Yo,
he was
those
shot
that
twice.
series of panels, the fact that you can see her face, like you can, and you're like, wait a minute, and there's kind of like a pained, you know, voice bubble behind her, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my god. But
And like, normally I would see this coming. You know, like
Yeah.
normally you can see this coming. You know, like I don't know if it was the idea that I had the wrong idea of what was going to happen, or if it's just the way that it was written. But I didn't see it coming. I did not.
I didn't either. And to be fair, it's kind of gratuitous. Like you can see the bullet holes in the child. You can see the blood coming. And I was like, this comic got real. And I thought it got real when Viv got stabbed. But I'm like, this is what are we doing here? Like what's going on here? Like this is so crazy.
Then it gets even worse because Viv takes her hand, turns it into diamond hard steel, knocks the father into a coma that he'll never be able to come out of.
Well, that's the thing. Like I really dug the escalation of it, and I really dug the series of panels because it does start off relatively calm, and he's just like, you guys need to leave and stuff, and I like what he says, like the line of like, where is it? Like he's like, I'm just trying to be real or whatever, right? Oh yeah, I'm just trying to be straight, trying to be real with you, you know? And she goes, yes, I know, but please understand, I too am trying to be real. And I was like, oh, this is about to get two people trying to be real when real recognizes real. It's about to keeping it real goes wrong.
One of the tragic things about that scene was that the conversation between Viv and CK was playing in the narration boxes, and I'm like, and then that very last panel is that racist caricature Indian thing with blood splattered all over it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, like this again, like just that panel by itself, if you were to take it and put it out of context, like that means so much. Yeah. You know? Like, but then in the context of the story as well, it's like, wow. Like so layered.
And seeing the father like literally look like a maniac holding this kid, his dying child in his arms, like his eyes are bald, his mouth, he looks like a monster, and you can almost hear him screaming, right? You're reading this along, you can almost hear him like, we'll get you all, we'll kill you. And in my head I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you want to say that, bro. Like, this is already gone too far. And she is willing to clean up all her mess. She came here to clean up a mess. So she's going to clean up a mess, bro. Just, you get to dictate how big that mess is. And so when she knocked him out, I actually thought she killed him. When you see him in the hospital in the next issue, I was quite surprised. I actually thought that it was dead. I thought she was going to keep
I thought she was going to finish him off in the hospital. She's floated above him.
Yeah.
It very, very ominously just watching, and then like we get the scene of the coroner deciding that this is a homicide, and that sets up the fact that the Visions are about to be suspects.
Yeah.
We also get this really cool scene of Shakespeare quotes. I'm not the biggest Shakespeare expert, so I'm not sure the story that this was taken from, but I know that I've seen these quotes before where it's like, if a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Basically asking, like, aren't we the same person? Aren't we the same thing?
It's called The Merchant of Venice.
There you go. The Merchant of Venice, and which is a story that Vin relates to immediately.
Oh, I already had a soft spot for this because of Cassie.
Yeah.
like how I love how these comic book characters who don't really know how to emote are being shown how to emote by 1960s plays from William Shakespeare. Like I love how they're able to use like this flowing language and the thous and all this other kind of stuff. And Vin, was already kind of ultra curious about his existence and who he is and whether or not he's normal, but this like sets him off, right? Like this work by William Shakespeare and how in the work it discerns that if my life and body react the same way that yours does, then there's no difference between us. And so there should be no there should be no more importance placed on you than there is on me.
That's why he asks his mom, if you prick me, do I bleed?
And if he does, and if he does bleed, then what? Like is he equal? And if he doesn't, is that to say that he's better or less than? I like that you see that Viv is really handling it hard. She's looking through the yearbook and stuff. She even rips out the page that CK was on, and his quote in the yearbook is, "It's all about the love," and that comes around. But you got the cops come up. They show up and they arrest Vision. And they're like, we need to...
we got to take you downtown to ask some questions. Yep. Yeah. I think that they were more suspecting that it was his son.
Yes. Yeah, because he already had issues with the kid. Then that was known. That was
But
noted.
yep, but being that he's an Avenger, you got to be careful with that. So they were already on tiptoeing on eggshells, and I think that made it a little easier to keep the lie. you know.
Yeah.
But as Vision is being interrogated at downtown, we get the scene of Viv, who's trying to convince herself that everything is normal, but this paradox that's happening has broken her even further to the point where she can't even express herself without like glitching and repeating.
Yeah.
She's like, you tell me about your day's activities. We will continue our discussion. And she's
Right.
like, she snaps and then she smashes the table and she's like, everything is normal.
Right.
She's obviously dealing with like depression. This is very real. These are very human emotions. This is why I'm
Yeah.
like, this is why earlier I was like, you can't call them robots. They're people.
Well, it's also
They're,
the
they're
it's also the
people.
idea that her husband just got arrested and seemingly taken to be questioned, but who knows what the result of that's
It
going to
was
be,
her.
right? Um,
It was
and
evidently her too. So she's like, oh no, like if he
yeah,
loses everything, it would be my fault.
right. And so that she smashes the table, and while her strength is probably very inhuman, we do that all the time. How often do we get upset and throw something and it breaks, or we, toss something, kick something, punch something? None of those things are logical answers to what we've just faced. None of them are answers at all. None of them solve anything. But
And
it's
at this
very
point,
human to
the
emote that way. It's very human to
oh,
just be a volcano of emotion and then just erupt. And so she's saying that everything is normal, and she has seemingly a normal response with unnormal consequences, where she breaks the whole entire table.
but
And
it doesn't help that the entire family is now crumbling. Where she's like, everything is normal. The Viv is like, oh my god, what is wrong with us? And then she runs away screaming CK's yearbook quote, and then frickin' Vin is like, Mom, if you prick me, do I bleed?
yeah,
Like, Jesus, this family is completely falling apart. At Vision, I don't want to call it an experiment, but it is.
yeah,
Like it's going bad. So while he's being interrogated, we're actually being listed all the 37 times that he remembers. Like, not that he remembers, but that he goes back to, because he even admits, like it might be more than 37, but these are the times that I feel like I was directly involved in saving these people, and now
right.
I'm being interrogated.
I was
You
gonna say, I
know?
was gonna say, and think about it. And to tell you the truth, that also spoke to me as a former soldier. When I first got back from duty and stuff like that, I did 4.5 years, 2 tours overseas in Iraq, and it things weren't as open and shut as they make it seem. Like, I figured I'd come back, take a government test, and be right
Yep.
along in another uniform, doing another job for a bunch of government money. But it's not that way. There are people actively working for spots here and jobs and stuff. So to be gone for as long as I was that much further behind. And when I would find myself, discouraged, or just feeling, like what, like I deserve more, I deserve better, I deserve, a better chance at this. It's almost as if I was sitting there thinking back, like, I saved the world. You understand? Like, I saved the world. Why am I sitting here and people are talking to me like, there's a difference between somebody who did nothing for 4.5 years and somebody who went to war for 4.5 years. But in some circles, people rather deal with the person who's done nothing because they know what kind of person they're getting. And so you get this weird sensation of like, oh, so that doesn't validate, what I think I deserve. I think I deserve to be treated better because I went and I sacrificed for the greater
That
good. And in this, he's like, I'm an Avenger. I've saved the Earth 37 times, and I don't get the benefit of the doubt from you. Like, I'm still getting the third degree. I'm still getting, all this other kind of stuff. And that there was no other way to put it. And it's just so weird that these profound messages and emotions and just through
I'm
lines are coming
sure.
from a robot. They're coming from
I,
a
I'm
citizen.
actually certain that Tom King is the Vision in this particular moment. I'm
Yeah,
not sure what happened in his life post his CIA life, but the realness of that moment and that feeling of, I have done so much for you. How could you possibly treat me this way?
yeah,
It's had to come from somewhere.
yeah. I just love like Ultron again.
It's like 8 times too.
Be like, and Ultron came back, and Ultron again.
And eventually he's the officer is asking him like, where were you at this time? Where was your son? Where was your family? Who can confirm this? I can confirm this. I'm the Vision. I why are you asking me for like more confirmation? I'm an Avenger. But eventually, and I think maybe, I don't know if he acknowledges, but it might be like for the first time in his life, he actually lies. He has to lie because he doesn't know where his wife was.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's like, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but it's a very human thing to do.
yeah. But and right before that panel, like we were just saying, he says 37 times. And all of it cannot redeem him from this small moment when he crossed to the other side, when he entered into the madness that was soon to come. This small moment, this small lie, and it's to say that he built his entire life and his existence off of the fact that he deserves to be happy and deserves to have a family because he has gone out of his way to save the earth, to join the Avengers, to fight for the greater good. So now he deserves to have some of that greater good to himself, and at every point it's being threatened. So does he deserve it? And if he does deserve it, at what lengths is he willing to go to keep it? And we see that in the future, as the story continues. But right there, that what broke my heart actually was he gets home. I am home. He sees his wife sitting there with the table broken. I am home. The table is broken. I do not know how to fix it. And just that, right?
Yeah, she's
We're in
not
a
talking about the
family.
table
Yeah,
either.
we're in a
You
family
know.
and something is broken, and I don't know how to fix it, but I know it's
I don't
broken.
think that I don't think that he picks up on that.
No,
I'll wait for you to come upstairs. And she repeats it again. I don't know how to fix it.
yeah,
Like she's broken. It's the saddest thing. Viv's spiral is like the saddest possible thing. Like,
yeah,
oh my god,
because
heart
she
wrenching.
does feel emotion, and she wants to do what's best, and sometimes what's best is not clear cut, and the fact that she does not want to hurt or harm the chances of Vision's happiness, we see her literally take that to her grave, right? Like she literally has that same mentality all the way to the end of it. But I like how the next issue opens up with the neighbor's dog finding Grim Reaper, and
Yep.
it bites onto the scythe, electrocutes itself, dies. Vision's at the dinner table telling the most boring story he possibly can because you can tell everyone's like depressed. I just love like no matter what scene she's in, Virginia just looks absolutely devastated. And they could be talking about anything, and she just looks absolutely gone. And no one, again, while could be a very obvious sign that something's wrong, he never sees it. He never like until the end doesn't console her, and it's like, okay, I see what you're going through, what's up and all this other kind of stuff, which um made me like it gave me a little bit of retrospective, like maybe I should be a little bit more attentive to other people's stuff. Like they're not just synthesoids in my life meant to do a task, but they also go through things too. And my things that I do affect them. And maybe sometimes when I do things and don't think that they're affected, it behooves me to check on those I care about. Because
And at this point, I'm fairly certain because it's been a few days now. Because as we don't exactly see what happened, but the rest of the house is absolutely destroyed.
yeah.
And at this point, I'm certain that Vision is just trying to keep things together, even though he's absolutely certain that it's wrong, that it's broken.
Yep.
Everything is broken,
Yep.
and he's still like. So the dog comes, finds, sniffs around, finds Grim Reaper's body, bites Grim Reaper's scythe, burns itself to death. Vision takes its brain, uses the brain
As
waves
you
to.
do, right? As you
Yeah,
do.
I guess
Because when you talk about
whatever.
normal and all that stuff, like this is something that he just thought. This was the logical answer to what happened to him.
And he did it so normally, like he didn't make a scene out of it. He took the dog and took its brain waves, copied it, and created a little another dog that they held a contest to name in the letters pages, and they named it Sparky.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they named it Sparky, so he creates Sparky. Now, one thing that I'm actually that I forgot was how did he deal with the body when he found it? Like,
He doesn't really, but
he
I
doesn't,
think
right?
they do. I think in the next issue they go over her telling him what happened and just being straight up and up with it.
Well,
But
the next issue is actually one of my favorites. That's the it's called
callback issue.
I too shall be saved by love,
Ah,
which Tom King points out in the letters pages that it's named by the very last speech bubble from Avengers West Coast of actually Avengers issue 147.
mm-hmm.
The very last thing that Vision says as he and Wanda are walking away is, "I too shall be saved by love."
Oh, that's
With
awesome.
so the book is that, because this entire issue is explaining his relationship with Wanda, and at the same time, something I didn't actually realize until I look back on it now is that these memories are not just being told to us for the sake of, whatever, let's take a break from the story. No, this is actually Viv sitting up in bed
Yeah.
looking through her preloaded memories that she got from Scarlet Witch's brainwaves.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, and that's where she can see the distance between her and Vision and who Vision wants her to be, right? And Vision, like there's a clear night and day there. And what I like about the dog scene and what's actually going on, there's two scenes going on at the same time, right? George is looking for the dog. George has showed up to the house. He's looking for the dog. The house is completely destroyed and stuff, and he's looking for the dog. And she is like doing the weirdest like housewife conversation, like small talk stuff. Like, yeah, we're just gonna clean. We're just trying to clean up, and then they say, when
We're remodeling.
yeah, we're just remodeling. And they say that a perfect remodeling has to deal with certain things being broken. So certain things are broken, but don't worry, we're just trying to get clean, just trying to clean up a little bit. Um, to me, this is very much like the dog situation, in which both of these people, and I mean, maybe this may hit a little home to you because you're a family man, but both of these
Yeah.
people rather deny the obvious decline that their family is going through, because they
Oh man,
believe
I've been.
if
You know
they
what?
just don't if they just don't mention it, it's not happening. If they don't
I
mention,
definitely,
you know,
definitely could relate to that, because in previous relationships that's been the problem, and as it does not end well.
no,
It never does. Not in this story, not in real life. Avoiding your problems and acting like they don't exist, that does not end well for anybody. Things need to be dealt with straight up.
yeah. And so instead of dealing with all the craziness that his family's been going through, he just builds them a robo dog, and he gives them Sparky. And
He just tries to distract them again.
yeah,
Another
and
distraction,
everybody's cool
another
with it.
way of.
Everybody's cool with
Yeah.
it. Everybody's good, and it's fine. Like they don't question it. And he even tries to have another soft moment um with Virginia. Like he's ready to just. And how many times have we done this, right? In toxic relationships, let's just forget all the bad stuff. Can we just get back to when we were cool? That doesn't ever last, because you're not coming to any decision. You're just choosing to ignore obvious signs that things are wrong. And so in that instance too, it's just like, yeah, I know you murdered a guy, and then he choked the guy, and there's a dead dog in our basement, and there's a dead man in our backyard. But let's just keep it. Let's keep the good times rolling. Let's just keep it. Let's not. If we don't look
I
down
think
on the tightrope, then we'll never fall.
one of the things that I forgot to mention was that as his life is falling apart, now we get to see the seed of Tony Stark being concerned about him starting to get watered by Scarlet Witch and Agatha Harkness, who I think it turns out they're the narrators of the story the whole time.
Yeah.
And they were explaining, the narration was them explaining to the Avengers the vision of the future that Agatha got by using the Everbloom flower,
Yeah.
where she's telling the Avengers, I got a vision of the future. The vision is gonna kill you all. He's gonna kill all your families.
Yeah.
We have to deal with it. So
Yeah.
their way of dealing with it is to send Victor Mancha, Ultron's son,
Real
to
quick,
live with the vision.
how did you feel about that call to arms? How did you feel about that? Like, we're bringing everybody in. We need to talk about Vision. It reminded me of we need to talk about Wanda. Remember
Yes, yes.
that?
Oh my God. Absolutely, that scene from House of M,
Yeah,
from the
that.
beginning of House of M, post Avengers Disassembled. See, in Avengers Disassembled, Wanda grieving the loss of her Chaos babies that she had with Vision,
Mhm.
her Chaos Magic babies, goes crazy. Okay, she creates all these new problems and she kills multiple Avengers. So now in House of M, everyone gets together to decide what they're going to do with her, to the point where, Magneto and her brother are like, "Pah, we're not letting this happen. You're not going
Yeah.
to deal with our family." So that definitely calls back to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just this idea like, are they fated? Are they just chaos? Are they chaos personified? Like beautiful and unpredictable, but in the same
And
sense dangerous?
you know what? You know what? It's just hitting me now that we brought up this Scarlet Witch connection. Is that Vision is going through exactly what she went through. She created her own babies.
Lost them.
She
Yeah.
was lost them. Well, eventually, they came back thanks to
Yeah.
chaos magic. But actually, that's a good. Where were they?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where's Wiccan and his brother and Wiccan's boyfriend? Yeah, you know what? That's a story. That's another.
Neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor
Cannot
there.
compute. Cannot
You
compute.
know. um. So yeah, this whole story is basically Vision going through exactly what Wanda went through, and it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
so many levels to this story. You need to go out and read this if you haven't.
And it's going to, in retrospect, put so much gravitas in everything that um Paul Bettany does in these movies. Like I'm
Oh,
always gonna be thinking in my head, like this is a robot that could just flip out at any point and just murder everybody around
him.
him.
Actually, what I'm excited about is that one of the Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic Universe shows is Scarlet Witch and Vision.
Ah, that's awesome.
So I'm so excited to see where they're going with that.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So we get to this what'd you call it? Like a throwback issue, right? Like a flashback sort of issue.
Like a flashback. We're explaining everything that brought us to this point.
And I'm not gonna lie, when DC or Marvel does this, I always think they do it expertly well. Like trying to place a character or a moment inside of an already established moment in time.
I love nothing more than to be rewarded for the things that I've already read.
Yeah.
So, bringing this story and attaching it back to the rest of Vision's history was icing on top of this already tasty cake. I was
Yeah.
like, this is great. That's why it's one of my favorite issues because of that. Because of that. Because of tying it back to history. I love when comics do that.
Or their little Thanksgiving dinner with the Wizard and Quicksilver, Wonder Man, Talking Cow. I did not get that. The High Evolutionary gives us a caretaker. Did they make
Yeah,
some cow?
the
Like
high evolutionary.
I know
He
him.
he
Yeah.
he creates, he takes, he. That's a whole nother story. But that was someone that ended up living with them after they had one of their big crazy Avengers battles.
And it's just a cow? Like, were they always a cow and now they're a person, or were they always a person and now they're a
I
cow?
feel like I feel like the specifics of his existence are lost to me at this time, right? But I do remember that like the Kree Skrull War, Vision gets attacked by a cow, and
I do
I
remember that.
was
Don't they play that in here? Don't they say a part
yeah,
about
yeah.
like?
One of the 37 saves where Vision is like, it's the Kree Skrull War, and this show is Vision like, I was shot down by 3 cows.
Someone answer for this. I do not understand what's going on.
Oh man.
But I
While we talk, I'm actually gonna go ahead and get some more background on this character. So you
it,
go ahead.
I think that it's beautiful. Like I said, how the art changes and it almost feels like the things are softened, in almost a rose-colored glasses kind of way. Maybe this is the perfect relationship that Vision's always wanted. Maybe it's not, but this is how he sees it. This is how he's put it inside Virginia's head. This is how he wanted to be. And I actually took a picture and posted it on CBC's Instagram and on my own of this conversation that they have that I think is so like beautifully flawed, but just beautiful in general, and just the artwork that comes with it. Where he goes, where she's talking about eating the Wondagore flower and stuff, and he's like, how do you like? Why didn't you ever tell me how to do it? And she's like, oh yeah, well, to do it the right way is a very beastly process. And second, I've already seen the future. And he goes, you have? I was unaware. And she goes, you Vision, you are my future. I just
It's
hope
hard. touching.
yeah, I hope when you sort of see me, maybe you could see it too. And he says, tomorrow always comes. And she says, yes, dear, tomorrow always comes. And I was like,
So
that was beautiful. Like, this book doesn't have the right to have as much in it
there
as
is
it
so
has.
much pain in this book that moment of brightness is just like, oh man, like that was needed.
Yeah, it was right up there with that. It goes right through me. Scene.
So I feel bad for not knowing this, or I feel bad for not knowing this off the back of my head. But Bova Ashire is like the midwife of the Marvel universe. She's the person who
What?
helped.
She can help
Yeah.
everyone give birth.
Well, so even as far back as Magneto's, as his, was her what his wife
Uh-huh.
Magda.
Yeah.
Bova was one of the people who helped her give birth to Wanda and Pietro. And after that, she helped. She helped freaking raise Jessica Drew.
Wow.
Spider-Woman. So she lives. She was created by the High Evolutionary. She was a cow, brought to. I don't want to say brought to life. Cows are already alive, but given a sense of self by the High Evolutionary. So yeah, her living amongst Wanda and them would make a lot of sense because that was basically like her auntie,
Yeah.
like a nana, you know.
How did you how do you feel about this idea that we get into now where Vision is the one that not only can discern but feels like he should be the one to say our kids, your kids are not real?
Uh you know what? There was a great scene there where Wanda screams at him, about that, where he's like, Wanda, we can't have these kids, and she's like, dude, you're a robot, like
He goes,
you're
she goes,
not.
you're a damn toaster.
You're a damn toaster. It's actually pretty sad because he told her that joke in confidence, and she flipped it on him and smacked
Yeah.
him in the face with.
Yeah.
But it's just so tragic because I don't know that he had the right to tell her that, or that anybody did.
I like
And
that you have that but this is not a family, this is a lie. And what good can come of this lie? And she goes, you're not real. And he goes, Wanda, did you not hear me? I will adjust my vocal volume. What good can come of this lie?
he's like,
He just doesn't get it. He's just like, I asked you a question and you just yelled something else that was completely unrelated.
so let me ask you again.
Yeah,
Maybe louder, it'll work this
Vision, that is what happens when you're in a relationship and you have an argument. Not everything that she says to you is gonna make sense. Sometimes it's gonna be pretty stingy. And then they do like a real quick cut to all white Vision. Vision goes to Hollywood basically when he
Yeah,
decided
he
he was
was
gonna.
Or I guess he thought he wasn't. He having been destroyed and then rebuilt, he kind of just assumed, like, I'm not the Vision who loves you, Wanda. And this was the end of their relationship. Actually, it never really got better after that. Eventually he does come back to normal, and when he does, it's too late. Wanda's moved on. And of all people for her to be with,
Yeah, right. But
Simon
you
Simon Williams.
you have this moment though where he's like, yeah, I'm not who you think I am, and although I know you guys think you have like a tie to me, but I'm not that guy, and I'm not your father, and I'm not your, husband or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just me. I'm a new Vision or whatever. And I like that she goes, "What's wrong with you? You used to be kind." And he says, "Is the truth not kind?" And it's like, is it not kind? Like, isn't that the kindest thing you can do? But I guess lying is the kindest thing you can do, right?
It's, you know what? And he's absolutely got a point, especially looking at it from, at that point in time, he was a bit more robotic than he was feeling.
Yeah,
So especially looking at it from like a robotic point of view, it's like, I thought that the truth was kindness.
right. Because I'm
But in the
telling you what's
very
real. I'm telling you what's
exact,
actually factually
uh,
real.
which actually goes back to the story, was like, is his family a lie? And with not having them be a kindness, like, well, like, it's
Yeah,
just another layer. But the next scene where Vision is too late to be back with the woman that he very so obviously loves
yeah,
is actually serves as the origin for Virginia,
Ah, that
which
makes
is
sense.
where Scarlet Witch says you were created from the brainwaves of Simon Williams, who is like you but is not you, so that's probably why I like him.
Right.
So I wanted to give you the opportunity to also feel this. So I've given, she gave him the diamond, or I forget what it's called exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't have an
She
actual name, right?
doesn't really have a name, right? It's she just calls it a replica of his.
Yeah.
Hank helped her make it, and she wanted Vision to have that same kind of happiness. So they replicated her brainwaves into one of those small diamonds, and now that's where we got Virginia from. It seems Vision has maybe held on to this for like 10 years. You know,
And speaking, yeah,
bef-
and speaking of holding on, it says, when she gives him the diamond, he's like, I don't need it, and she's like, well, it's a gift, and he's like, a gift that I don't need is useless, and she's like, well, that's kind of the point, and this is something that he says back, right? Whenever somebody says, well, that's meaningless, he's like, well, that's kind of the point.
that's why it's nice, right? It's
Yeah,
nice because I didn't have to give it to you, and you didn't need it, but I wanted to.
and so every time that his family's like, that doesn't make any sense, he's like, that's the point. That's what humans do. They do random crazy shit that don't make no sense and get everyone emotional. So that's what we're gonna do here. And even with that breakup, seemingly, you're led to believe like, okay, well, he's gonna be fine. He's a robot. She's gonna be fine because he's happy, and they laugh so amicably, like, oh, well, they seem like they're gonna be good buds and stuff. And then you turn the page, and it's just him and Virginia with the joke, and so sterile and so operatic and robotic, and it soul crushing.
In the end, we begin again, and everything is new and different.
Yeah.
That's that's the final. Those are the final words of that page where we see that, and they've got like a clear space between them too. It's like there's a big divide here, Vision. Stop ignoring it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And but as long as the wheels keep
So,
moving, right? In my family, right? As long as the kids get good grades and no
yep.
one's in jail and everyone's got to be fine. As long as to the outside they look fine, they got to be fine. And
Unfortunately,
that's very
but
real. That's a very real,
hor- horribly actually, everything is not fine. You see, Victor Mancha, right? He was brought from the Avengers, sent him into the Vision's home, to
Yes.
keep an eye on them and to report back. So,
Unbeknownst to Vision, though, Vision thinks that he
unbeknownst to
just
Vision, of course,
showed up and they're hanging out. He just thinks that they're having
because
some
that's
good
his
old
brother.
family time.
That's
Crazy, right? All
that's his
these,
brother.
it's crazy. All the weird family ties with them being robots and stuff is all like, huh? Okay, brother.
You know,
Okay, fine.
it actually is his brother, though. Just like they both created by the same dad. I guess half brother because they don't have
Yeah,
the same mom.
yeah, right.
Would Simon Williams be Vision's mom?
That's a good question. That's a very
You
good
know.
question.
Okay.
Does
So,
that make Janet the grandmother?
oh
You
my
know what I'm saying? He
goodness.
started asking crazy questions like that.
We're taking this is insane actually. No, okay. So Victor is in the house. He's gaining everybody's trust. He learns that Vision is acting like everything's normal. Virginia is broken beyond repair. Viv is obsessed with the death of CK. Vin obsessed with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But Vin stumbles upon Victor reporting back to the Avengers, to which we actually learn that Victor's not all okay either.
No.
Victor's addicted. Victor's addicted to vibranium.
Yep.
So he's addicted even up to being in this house. So during the last few issues, we actually saw that he plays around with the piano a lot, and it turns out that that's because the piano is made of vibranium,
Yeah.
and
Get
he's
from the Black
addicted to the
Panther.
vibranium. So he's still an addict, and he's still making addict decisions. And one of those spur of the moment decisions without thinking that he makes is when he catches Vin catching him. He shoots him with lightning to the
Yeah.
point where he kills him.
I thought another cool little part about Victor's thing is the same idea, right? So we've been following Agatha and Wanda. They're the ones for the most part that are narrating this, and it's always the series, the feeling of dread and the feeling of finality. We've ate the flower. What happens is Vision kills all the Avengers. That's what he's going to do. We must stop him. In the same sense, we're giving a smaller version of this fatalism with Victor, because Victor's ultimate destiny is to do the same, right? He's supposed to Ultron's what
Yep.
you call it,
He was,
programming is supposed to come
yep.
back, and
He
he's
was
supposed to
supposed
destroy
to
everybody.
grow up, become an Avenger called Victorious, and destroy all of his Avenger teammates. That actually happened in an alternate future already. But
Okay.
they stopped. They stopped it. It was stopped. But Victor always lives with this sense of I don't want to be victorious. I don't want to be victorious. I don't want to be victorious. It doesn't matter what happens. I don't want to be that.
So, it's funny because Victor is actively trying to be a hero, and even though what he's doing, spying on his family members, all this kind of stuff, that's a betrayal of trust. Ultimately, by following this path, he gets to stay off of that path of being victorious.
Yeah, in his own mind, doing this, even though it's a betrayal of trust of his own brother, his own nieces, his own nephew, his own sister-in-law, in his mind, this is him being an Avenger. This is him doing everything he can not to be victorious because he's being a hero because the Avengers asked him to do this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. You know,
He seemed like a
he
good kid, though. Have you read much of Victor Mancha prior
in
to
the in
this
a,
story?
I read a little bit of him in Avengers AI, and I know of him from Runaways. But I actually I need to read more Runaways because I
Okay.
wanted to finally get into the Hulu show.
Okay.
And I've heard that it's very good actually. But I wonder if they'll introduce him on that. Anyway, um, from what I've seen of him in Avengers AI, that was always the thing with him, not wanting to become victorious. You know, but what they did with him here was it was pretty wild because there's a sense there's a bit of permanence to what happens to him in this story. You know,
Hmm.
he so actually like we said, he's killed Vin. He's killed, and I'm gonna use that word too because Vin was alive. You know, I think that one of the questions people are gonna come out of this story with is like, were they actually alive? You know, they were, and Vin is dead now. So now we get to see how Vision reacts to losing his son, which I think was why I think that was one of the more fascinating things of the whole story. Even in an already fascinating story, was watching Vision, who has been so composed this whole time, just finally lose it in his own way. Because it wasn't like a shouting, raging, insane Vision. You know,
Yeah.
he's still composed, but he's lost it. This
and
is
and
it.
even without pupils, they're still able to show the horror of that, like the torture of that Victor accidentally put Vin through before he killed
Oh
him.
my goodness. Vin just screaming for his mommy, his mom. He was saying mother, 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 but then right before his death it became mommy, mommy, and I'm like, "Oh god."
Such a horrifying, like, it again. They, even though these things lack things that would normally give us emotion, like eyebrows and pupils and stuff, they're still able to show. It's still able to be pretty damn scary. And like you said, Vision shows up, and
Actually,
oh, he doesn't show up,
actually
does he?
no, no, he doesn't show up. What happens is the dog Sparky attacks Victor and Victor lets off of Vin. And Vin gets a moment of relief and then Victor shoots again and then Vin shoots a beam from his diamond on his head and destroys the neighbor's house. And now we know how the neighbors
Oh, it
died.
caught fire. Yes, it's true. The diamond set fire to the neighbor's house next door, and that's how they end up
And
dying.
yeah, and that's what Vision and Viv and Virginia ended up noticing, and that's how they finally came over to see what was going on, and their son was dead.
Yeah.
So from there, the Avengers take Victor to jail, and they place the entire Vision family on house arrest.
Yep.
Uh,
And you
at this
see,
point,
you see what I like from the here on. I'm in love. I've already sat for the dinner. I'm waiting for dessert. This book has been absolutely, tremendous. But this has to be one of my favorite moments, not only in this book, but probably in comic books in total. And it's Vision trying to explain how revenge is logical.
oh man, I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that because you hear this a lot from in real life, where it's like, how could this person be alive, but my son is not? This is not fair. And in Vision's own logical way, It is very logical. That line of thinking is completely logical.
Yeah.
In what way? In what way does that person get to continue existing? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. He's like,
you
wait,
know.
he took something. He took our son from us, but he still gets to live. That does not seem like it's. And I'm just like, he is talking himself he's about to do something. Like he's about to. He's folding his clothes. You know, he's about to get ready to do something, and we find out that the house arrest is kept, going because they have an electrical field around their house, and that's what's keeping all the dangerous robots inside, I guess, as you would say. But you still have Virginia falling apart at the seams. Another really beautiful and poignant moment is watching Vision and Viv pray for Vin.
Oh, that was beautiful because they acknowledge the fact that the idea of God is illogical. So she prays that there is a God, and then she prays that her brother has a soul. Because again, the idea that her brother having a soul is illogical. The idea of prayer is illogical, but they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, I pray that there's a God. I pray that my brother has a soul, and I pray that God guides my brother's soul to somewhere peaceful. And I'm just like,
right? Like again, like holy hell.
and that moment right there also was one of the driving things in Vision's decision to get revenge. Like it was just too much.
Yeah.
Even for a logical brain, sometimes it could just be too much. This, like, oh man, I don't have words for how that. It was so poignant, so beautiful. Like, it's so tragic though, beautiful in its tragedy.
And you had this moment of Vision taking out one of his eyes and using it as a projector to project a hologram of his son reading Shakespeare. And this was something that is poignant too, because everyone seemed kind of annoyed by Vin constantly yelling Shakespeare out. They let him do it, but they seem kind of like, what are you doing that for? And in this moment, it doesn't matter what he's doing it for. Vision just wants him near. Vision just wants him around, and it's like, how could you be so human? How could you be so, how could these moments be so relatable when you are seemingly a pile of, cables, equations, and batteries and stuff. But watching him mourn for his son and then put on the suit, the cape, put on the suit, the cape, grab Captain America's lighter, and use it to bust out of the house, and then he's ready. He needs to kill Victor to get even because of his son's death, and he has rationalized not only his rage but this idea of vengeance. And I have it, even written down. Like, is that human?
It's absolutely human.
Vengeance and rage, and
it's actually, aren't we the only sentient species that actually has these thoughts?
Like to get back at somebody?
Revenge, like the idea that this person wronged me and I have to wrong them back in order to have a sense of fairness, because I don't think that other animals even understand the concept of fair. And I say other animals because we are animals,
right.
We just have that sense of self.
Right. And we've convoluted things to a point that, it seems like we have a bunch of like these really sophisticated laws and stuff, but it's just a bunch of stuff that says don't hurt us and don't steal from us. It's all different versions of that, but it's all the same thing. So Vision is feeling the very human emotion of revenge, and I like that they have that conversation at the dinner table, Virginia and Viv, about like, yeah, your father's probably gonna try to kill.
And logically, they're going to turn us off too. Yeah. So she's like, I might as well tell you what happened to CK. And Viv doesn't take that lightly. She absolutely feels betrayed. And she smashes the table and gets up, phases upstairs. Meanwhile, Vision is facing down a giant squad of his former teammates, both X-Men, Avengers, and Inhumans. Even though at this point in time in Marvel Comics they were trying to shunning the X Men, so you don't really get much X Men. You just get
You get Beast,
Beast.
but Beast was
You
also
just
the
get
one hanging out with the Inhumans all the time.
yeah,
You
yep,
got that.
yeah. So it's, yes, it's basically Inhumans. Actually, I should point out that the one thing that dates this book, and I kind of wish it didn't happen in this era, is the idea that all the Avengers that come are like the weird ones.
Oh, the alternates, right?
That weird era of Avengers post Secret War, where it's like we're shunning the X Men completely. We're trying to put the Inhumans in the forefront, but it doesn't feel right, you know. So, but that aside, seeing Vision, who's like trying to explain this to them in a way that he doesn't see anything wrong with it, because again, this is the logical line of thinking, and he's just like, I understand that due to his role in the death of my neighbors and my son, actions undertaken under your vision, that he makes sure to point that out, like, this is on you. But he doesn't
Yes.
get mad about that. He's still logically just explaining it.
It's,
This
it's,
happened
it's
because
still
of
one
you.
for one. It's still
You
one for
know,
one in his eyes.
I'm here to visit Victor and I'm gonna kill him. And then Iron Man's like, dude, you can't. He's like, I would greatly appreciate your cooperation in this matter. However, I do not require your cooperation in this matter. And that's something that he continues to repeat to everyone who tries to get in his way. I would greatly appreciate your cooperation in
Yeah.
this matter, but I do not need you.
Yeah.
So get out of my way.
And
You
and
know?
in a series of panels, in case there was ever any doubt, we truly see that he's one of the strongest Avengers that they have. And I also understand that people weren't trying to kill him, but I feel like in the same sense, he wasn't trying to kill other people either.
Oh, I don't think that they could have if they wanted to. Did you see how he just systematically demolished this entire, just like powerhouse team? Just like the people that attacked, like Thor, attacked him first, and it's like dealing with them like children. Like, just completely destroyed, like just demolished them all. Like, he wasn't trying to kill them. They weren't trying to kill him, but he wasn't trying to kill them either. So, and this is Vision taking it easy on them.
But literally hot knife through butter. Like, he's just moving through them. He's just walking forward, trying to get to that prison, and people are trying to get him. I like that you see, people trying to team up on him and do all kinds of stuff. But that density, man, that density manipulation, he's giving everybody 1-4. And it was a visceral feeling. Like, it really got my adrenaline running, because it's like, he doesn't want to do this, and in any other case of the world, he wouldn't have done this. But this was his family, and again, why can't he have a family? And again, why can't he get revenge? Almost everybody on the other side has gotten revenge for something, right? Has gotten mad about something and had to go back and get their revenge. Vision is not one to ask for stuff. Vision is not one to complain about stuff. Vision is not one to be spiteful or petty. But in this moment, he's at peak humanity. In this moment, he is truly what he seeks to be, and that has put him in direct line against his best friends. And
he does get a small reminder of what he is, though, because this entire battle is happening in front of a movie theater that is playing one of Simon Williams' latest films. So as he shot, what I get, right now we get one of my favorite pages in the entire book, where it's just like Simon Williams on the big screen and Vision just like floating there, just kind of looking at him like, this is, the entire time that this battle is happening, Vision is recalling his origin.
Yeah.
So at this very moment where he crashes into the wall and he's looking at Simon talking about, please listen to me, Babylon is great is fallen, but I can still save you. It's the same time that the narration is at the moment where he gave himself a name.
Yeah.
Perhaps I am what the Wasp called me, a vision of death. So it's like Simon Williams' brainwaves gave him life. At the same time, the narration is talking about how he got his name, but at the same time, he's also finally, like you said, he is what he always wanted to be, human.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that's one of my favorite single pages of the entire book. I actually saved it onto my phone. I love that page. While all this is happening, Virginia has finally like completely snapped. She killed Sparky.
She's fighting the dog.
Like,
she not only choked it, but she like punched. I've never seen somebody punch a dog. Like, hold the dog up and punch it. But that's exactly what she did. And in a
So
lot
at
of ways, in a poetic way, that dog is just representation of duct tape put on the relationship, right? Something
Yeah,
else that
exactly. It
just
was just like a little some crazy glue or something.
yeah,
You know, it was, and she's finally snapped. She ripped off the tape. You know, and as this is happening, the narration is now explaining Virginia's first moments
yeah,
and how Vision explained to her that if she wanted, remember his whole thing was like, all right, I need you guys to be this way, but it's the suggestion. You know, I would never want to force you the way Ultron tried to force me.
right.
If you want, we can marry, we can have a house, we can even have children, and we can be part of a happy, normal family.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I don't know that that turned out the way he wanted it to.
no.
But so she completely kills Sparky, which sucks. I like Sparky. You
And
know,
it's weird because he's a synthezoid dog. He has like synthezoid uh organs.
yeah, and so in a callback to Agatha Harkness's the moment where she where they're explaining to us how the Everbloom flower works, where she takes a bite, she kills the cat, then she takes the flower out of its stomach and then eats that. So now this has happened with Virginia, where she killed the dog who had earlier eaten one of the Everbloom flowers. She eats that petal, and now she saw the same future that Agatha did. One where Vision kills Victor and eventually has to kill the rest of the Avengers. So, at Vision is finally in the jail, and the final wall in front of him is one of the people that has been looming throughout this entire story, and that's Wanda,
Yep.
who tries to explain to him like, I understand you. You know, we're both different. You know, everyone they stay the same, but us we're always changing. You know, you can't do this. Agatha saw the future, and it doesn't turn out well for you. And he's just like, I'm sorry, you never understood me.
Yeah.
And Agatha being dead
Well,
can't actually do anything.
well, it's funny because it talks about what we just talked about, how this is his most human moment. She says like, "Don't you get it? If you do this, you know you'll never be able to come back from this. You'll be just like everybody else." And he says exactly what we've been saying this whole cast. That's what he wants. That's what he, flawed or not, broken or not. If this is what humans do, he doesn't mind doing it because if humans have the right, they're entitled, and they can do these things. He's tired of being told what he can and can't because he's a robot. And now he has
Abs-
these emotions, he has his family, he has his life, and he won't let it be
he
taken
keeps
away
taking
from him because people think that they can put him in a subclass or put him, downgrade him, his existence or his family's existence. And he's
and
like, well, if I am like everybody else, then I'm entitled to my revenge like everybody else. And I thought that was really, really cool.
that was actually pretty beautiful. Another thing that I noticed was like, you know, you get to see like you get to see how much Agatha and Wanda actually cared about him. Like one of the questions I asked earlier was like, how did the Avengers see him? Well, regardless of how they saw him, Wanda and Agatha and his family that they showed in the flashback issue, you know, they thought of him as human already. So Agatha mourns for the fact that he's about to go through with this, and you know he was there. He finally was there. He was in front of Victor, and he's like, you know, I'm here to do what I have to do. And Victor has even accepted it because if anything, it's what he wants. As long as he doesn't have to
Yeah,
become
as long as I'm not
victorious.
victorious.
And right before he does it, we get Virginia, who does the act for him and kills Victor and gets revenge for her son. One, because it's her son, and two, because she saw the future and she saw what would have happened had she not been the one to do this and had it been Vision. She does it in such a matter of fact way that it's creepy because she just rips Victor's heart out of his chest. And while she's doing that, she's like explaining to Vision, you know, I told my daughter of my Roland CK's death. She's quite upset, and I believe your presence would provide her with comfort, as it has provided me with comfort. As such, I will see you at home. And she drops Victor's heart on the ground, and Victor has a look of happiness on his dying face because I shall not be victorious.
Yeah, and she's got like the half robot, half beating heart. You know.
So It's that was just like eerie, but oh man, that's just tragic how that's how this all went down, how it degraded, you know.
Yeah.
So after this, we just get Virginia giving the police a version of the things that happened that will only incriminate her,
Yep.
not Vision and not Viv. And as she's doing so, she takes a sip of the vase that's made of poisoned water and can't hold any plants.
Yep.
So this vase that represented the idea of humanity and its illogic and how illogical it is ends up being what Virginia uses to end her own life.
Yeah. The absurdity, right, of just existence in a way. She 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 she's gone. She doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and we see how Vision responds to that. And I like when she's like like Viv's upstairs. She's mad at me. He's like, I see, and she's like, also I killed the dog, and he's like, oh, like, oh yeah, listen, don't worry about it. Um, and so she explains that like she's taking the poison water and it will kill her, but he doesn't want her to go.
He's telling her, you can phase it out. You're a Vision. Just phase it out. And she's
And,
like, no, man.
and how human is that, right? She's ready to go, but he doesn't want her to go.
For both of them, like even in her own decision to take her own life is the acknowledgement that she has one. You know,
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin here. She's it's tragic watching him cry for her, but she wanted this, so he couldn't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
She did the right thing, or she did the wrong thing, or she just did what everyone does.
She did.
You
She
know, that's
followed
the
her heart, which is
she.
we hear often is the right thing to do, regardless.
Regardless, she followed her heart. She did what what she wanted to. So like now, the Vision and Viv are the only two left of this family. They brought Sparky back. Wanda actually brought Sparky back with Tony Stark's help.
Yeah.
And they're gonna continue on living. Vision got his family. He lost some members, but he also, to have known love, right?
Yeah.
Is to lose it. But we got the classic Tom King open ending.
Oh, right. It's. I thought it was very poetic to have Wanda be the one to try to reach, Viv.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially for Viv. I don't know if Viv. I don't know that they ever explained it to Viv that her mom was basically one of Wanda's. Like I don't know how to
Right.
how to identify what the word is to identify the relationship between Wanda and Virginia, but there obviously is one, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Wanda, she wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
But so I definitely thought that was perfect. I thought that was perfect. And at the end, you don't even know who he's recreating. Is it his wife? Is it his
I
son?
thought son.
Is
But it literally could be anybody. And the craziest thing about it all is that rereading it now kind of makes me really mad that he created Virginia. Like, what an existence, right? Like, what a sunrise, sunset. All of it is just terrible. All of it.
Well, that happens in real life. Sometimes you just don't know. You create a baby, you put it out into this world, and sometimes it ends tragically. And then you ask yourself, why did I even create this life?
Yeah.
And then as the very final panel, life is but a dream.
And
I'm like,
and life is a dream. And if you consider a dream, in the same sense that they were talking about earlier, uh, where it talks about like purpose and stuff, right? Uh, they want to be allowed to have what they consider unobtainable purpose, and then use their imagination, use dreams, faith, hope to accomplish those things. And logically, if you were to bring a child into this world, and God forbid that child were to lose its life for a myriad of different reasons, it's going to be very, very hard for you to, cross that bridge and want to have another child if have another child at all. It actually takes a lack of logic, right? It takes love and faith and hope to spring those waters back to life. And that's what happens with Vision. Logically, you're right. You know what? This did not go well. We're not doing this again. But that's not. He was in love. He loved his life, and there's no logic in love a lot of the times. And so because of that, to him, the obvious thing to do next is to try this again. Which I'm a little scared. I don't know how this whole Frankenstein situation is gonna come out.
I doubt that we'll ever actually see what comes of it until 20 years from now. Somebody like us who read this story and is a huge fan of it decides to pick up on that thread.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Did you said you had a favorite moment? What do you think after when all is said and done is your favorite moment of this series?
Well, there, like I said, there was that moment where we finally, where Vision is absolutely fucking distraught, but in his own Vision way, like he's absolutely tearing through every single Avenger and Inhuman, and that one X-Men, and
showed up.
But that at the same time, he's finally what he wanted to be, as tragic as it is. This is what you wanted, and you finally got it. Yeah. And it didn't all end. The story itself was pretty tragic. Virginia, but he got some sunlight. There's some silver lining. He still has Viv.
Yeah.
Viv gets to continue living, and he gets to continue watching over her. Eventually, she becomes a champion, right?
Yep.
Which is basically like a baby Avenger, Tom King's Vision story does mention that she doesn't get to live a long life, so I'm worried about how that's going to end up for her. But for now, she's absolutely fine. Vision has his family and his little hobby, creating another little person, right?
Well, I think that's a commentary on mental health in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm just
the whole story. The whole story was about mental health entirely, and all different types too. It wasn't just depression.
Because anybody, if you right now, right, decided to take some time and write down every discouraging, disheartening thing that you've ever experienced, right? Somebody could read that and be like, why would this person even continue to exist? Why continue to live? What life is this? What kind of day to day is this person experiencing? Where you could be like, oh, that stuff happened, and that's fine. Things happen, but my life is pretty good.
As long as it's a life.
Yeah. Perspective.
Life.
And to tell you the truth, I actually went and I apologized to my girlfriend. We were having a fight, and I apologized to her. I was like, listen, I want you to know that even when we fight, I'm grateful that we fighting. Because that means we're alive. That means we care about what we're talking about. That means that we have things, we have wants and needs and desires, and we get hurt because we care, and all that stuff exists. And she's like, where's all this coming from? I'm like, don't worry about it. It's not important. All right.
Just understand that I appreciate you. I appreciate life.
And I would never unplug you. What? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I know where your off switch is, but I wouldn't use it.
No, I definitely know where the on one is. But anyway, yeah, it's just, I cannot believe how veiled this story is. I think you can read it over and over again and get a different meaning from it. Different favorite parts, different. I didn't catch that from before, and a lot of this conversation is organic. A lot of the things that I'm bringing up are things that I'm literally just thinking about as we.
Oh yeah, definitely. Same here. Like looking back over the story and talking about it, I'm like, yeah, there's like 8 meanings to this one panel, you know? Like, so I'm again, this is like things like this are why I'm so willing to just be like, you know what? I'm gonna keep reading Batman. Like this, the same person that wrote this wrote that. So I'm like,
right. I feel you. Yeah.
And so actually, we need to we I would love if we actually did this same type of dissection with Mr. Miracle.
Okay.
It's just but actually there's Tom King short stories are like beautiful little.
I mean,
little
listen, I read the one where Superman outlives humanity.
And he comes back and he's like, I got Lois's immortality medicine. It tastes like grape.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think it gets pretty weird, but I don't
He,
know what about this particular material that he just
it's
gels so well with it. Is it because Vision is just an empty shell that he gets to fill with whatever?
it's more that he was you see with these stories I noticed like he loves to insert himself into these books, you know, like sometimes it works better than others. With Heroes in Crisis, people were mad because it's a little bit overly violent, it's a little bit gloomy, you
Yeah,
know, some points is grotesque, you know,
pessimistic and stuff. Yeah,
pessimistic, but at the same time this is his commentary on life in general.
yeah,
It can get that way, but at the same time, it can also there are also silver linings. I think
yep.
with a longer form story like let's say Batman, he has he dips into that darkness for longer
Hmm.
than if it was just 12 issues. You know, you dip into the darkness for 2 issues, but the light is here by issue 10. It's by issue 12. You know, but
Yeah,
with Batman, it's 100 issues long, so the darkness lasts for a longer time. You know, like you thought you were gonna get the wedding. Sometimes life doesn't work like that, Sonny. You know, like
he's really good at darkness. It's just really dark. It's just really
really
like,
dark,
you
and
know.
sometimes in 2019, the life is dark. You know, sometimes you want to escape that, and
But
you
in the same
jump
no, but in
into
the same sense, he did, like you said, in between those, you'll get some very poignant moments with Alfred, or some very poignant moments with any of the Robins, and amidst the darkness, you will get a glimmer of light. But I do think that it is the sheer volume of darkness versus the glimmers
it's
of light.
very,
I do not doubt that he'll be able to pick it all back up by the end. I just wonder
for
the
sure.
stomachs of the reader, how, if they know that
That,
there's going to be a good end, if they have the benefit of the doubt that he's going to do so. Because if you don't, it just seems like somebody's just doing like torture porn for torture porn's sake, right? Like they just,
that's it's actually as of I want to say press time. What do you call it when you're recording something, right?
yeah, press time. Yep.
As of this press time, right? There's a controversy going on about a short Tom King Superman story where Superman is wondering about all the horrible things that can happen to Lois.
Okay.
You know, and some people, it's a Walmart book, and people
Yeah.
are arguing that because it's a Walmart book, these are meant to be entry points for even children, right?
Right.
So if a kid picks up this issue of Superman, he's gonna see the equivalent of a Lois Lane snuff film.
Yeah, on every
So,
page, every
like,
possible horrifying thing that can happen to this woman.
so again, like what with me personally, as long as it's well written, I don't care how dark you get or how light you get. That's not my business. I'm riding the train until this ride is over,
Yeah.
right? But I can completely understand why other people would have an issue. Like I was saying, you know, it's 2019. Life is dark.
Yeah.
There's some everywhere you look. There's something else wrong. You know, sometimes you want to open up a book and you just want to feel some optimism.
Hmm.
I don't think you should open up a Tom King book if that's what you're looking for. But at the same time, maybe you should. Maybe you're going through some stuff. Maybe you gotta get taken to another little darkness to be shown like,
But
hey,
it's funny.
here,
Mr. Miracle does. I feel does that. He has a good balance of both the light and the dark. It is extremely dark at points, but I feel like, and again, this is an organic opinion coming, right off my top of my head. That's the point. Like he's trying to say
that's,
that human existence is always going to be dark and bleak, but it's up to us as individuals to find the light.
oh, that's. I feel like that should be written on post it and then that he wears on his forehead. You
Yeah,
know, like,
yeah. It's like these things
that
will happen. They're unavoidable. Bad things are going to happen to you in your life. Your life continues because you are able to see that there's more of life to be had, and that you want to have it. You want to accept the rest of that life comes with, which means that you want all the other BS too, because that's coming too. It's never going to
yeah.
stop.
If it's like it's probably the main theme in the Vision story. It's like if you this is life, and if you want life, life comes with dark. Life comes with light. This is just life. You know, life is life.
Yeah.
You know, uh, um, I just thanks. I guess you know. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for giving me this. I'm gonna definitely. I need a copy of it for my shelf
Me
immediately.
too. I need that hardcover with those
I
cool like USB kind of drawings on the front.
there was actually a situation where I guess Tom King's wife was wondering why they didn't have a copy of it.
Hmm.
of a Vision, and like they had to go through some stuff to get their own copy, even though they wrote the book.
What's
You
going
know,
on? What's
like
going on with Marvel in that? That's not the first time I've heard that.
no, right? They're like cheap. You know
What
what
are
the
you
hell?
talking about? I wrote it. Give me one.
I wrote that. I don't get a comp. You
Oh
know,
my
just
gosh.
Disney's like this. I could just get this vision of Mickey Mouse. Like, nah, that's $20.
I know you were thanking Tom King, but I gotta thank you because I know that I read this on a fly. I heard so much about it and I read it, and this thing took over my whole mind for like a week, and I brought it up to you, and I was like, I would really like you to like read this book, and it's a lot. It's 2 volumes,
Yeah.
and it's like I really like to read it and talk about it, but I knew that once you got in. Um, this thing is gonna sit on the same shelf as a lot of the greats, in my opinion.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
and
That's going.
the
Yep.
fact that it's all encompassing, like it's all in this one issue or this one run for the most part. I mean, yes, you can follow Viv through Champions. We spoke about all that kind of stuff. Vision is on the Avengers, so you can always follow him. But this is gonna be such a cool, clean 12 issue, really an emotional roller coaster. And it plays with all you're laughing, you're sad, you're shocked, you're angry. You literally hit the gamut of all emotions in a story about things that are supposed to be emotionless. And it goes to show you the extent of our human empathy, how we can still feel for things and realize when a situation is incredibly human. So I wanted to thank you for being able to dive in deep with me with this because if not, it would just been a one man rambling crazily about all this kind of stuff. And I do think that books like this and comic book stories like this are an experience. Like there's something you have to give someone and let
Oh,
them grow on
absolutely.
it. You know. And I'm glad that we were able to not only have that experience but share that experience with everybody listening. And I'm going to start pushing people who don't read comics to this book.
Oh, this is like what? This is like a great work of literature. You know, like okay, so this is about to be a thing because we just had this situation. Well, Mr. HBO, right?
Yeah,
Mr.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher, right? Mayor, whatever, however you pronounce this douchebag's name,
Hmm.
decided to tell comic book fans that they needed to grow up. You know, that they needed to, that being proud of being a comic book fan was the equivalent of being proud that your mom still knits your mittens, right?
Yeah,
But then you read something like this, and it flies in the face of everything that he was saying.
exactly.
So it's like
And it makes you emote in a way or question things in a way that he's never
it's
done.
probably never experienced this
Yeah.
guy. You know, he's never ever experienced something like this. If anything, I feel sorry. I
Oh,
feel
you
sorry
you want
for
to get
him.
more mad? He sure
I'm
he
always
he sure didn't mind cashing that Iron Man 3 check.
no, he didn't. Right? He was in that movie. That's
Yeah,
right.
he was.
That's
Yeah,
right.
he was.
That's
War
absolutely right.
Machine's got a new paint job. Well, Mr.
Yeah.
Marr, you seem to not care, but it makes sense because he used to date a superhero. You
You
know,
know, the thing.
he spent many years with the underrated superhero that we knew in the early aughts, Superhead. So
Oh
he
shoot.
I can understand his disdain towards superheroes.
I
You
think
understand? He's like, no.
more inexperienced. You know, that's an outside view. He's
Yeah,
so outside the bubble. And there are maybe millions of people just like him
yeah,
outside of the bubble who look down. But then look when he grew up. Like, this is an old man. Listen, this is somebody's grandpa or something. Like, he look at his freaking face. You know, like he's this in his time growing up. Maybe comic books were a little bit more childish, and maybe there wasn't too much rich comic literature back then.
yeah.
But then that goes to speak to all the older people who are stuck in their ways and haven't opened their mind to the new generation of things. But again, let's not even get into that too much.
Well, we live in a world.
He lost that.
We live in a world where a movie
You
like
know?
Black Panther gets 7 nominations in the Academy Awards. You understand what
Oof.
I'm saying? We live in a world where great
Seven
people make
Oscar
yeah. We live in a world
Jesus.
where great people make great content and then other people grab that content, elevate it, and others grab that content and elevate it. And that's to me what the comic book world is. You get Tom King's vision because someone said that there needed to be a vision on the Avengers. And you get that because someone said there needed to be an Avengers. And so these are literally people compounding their own genius on top of each other, and you don't get this anywhere else but here. I don't want to glorify some random auteur that beats his wife and goes and squandered all his money with gambling debts. But he had a really profound thing on social politics. Like, no, I do want to sometimes get away from what you was talking about, like sometimes the mundane and the horrifying nature of regular life that's out there, where people like him are able to change the narrative. This doesn't. I can't tell what Tom King's political leanings are from reading this book. You understand what I'm
I'm
saying?
glad. I'm glad. I'm actually very glad that I'm happy when writers are keeping their own political ideas out of comics, because if you look at like some of Frank Miller's post 9/11 work,
Yeah.
it's
Holy
like
terror.
yikes,
Come on, guy.
yikes, just
Come on,
just
guy.
yikes.
Open a book. um, yeah, but this is a tour de force. This is a book like I've never read before. But I asked you before we started to record, if you could describe this book in one word, what would it be?
Ooh, oh, that's a heavy question. One word. I don't want to say like depressing.
I mean, it could be. It could be.
No, no, in a way, but it's not just that either. It's not just depressing. If I had to choose one word to describe this book, if besides great,
Yeah.
you know,
Because that was
um,
mine for a while. It was like beautiful masterpiece. I was just literally just
it's
expounding
not
upon how
good.
great it is as a
I don't
work.
blame you. I don't blame you. Like it's not overrating it to say that this is one of modern comics. Like, this is a great work. It's
Yeah.
just great all around. I want to say that I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's been recognized by people outside of comics as well.
Yeah.
I had to choose one word. It would just be like life. It was just life,
Yeah.
life, like it was just
Yeah.
like so all the different aspects of life.
Yeah.
Like I mean, but again, just I can't recommend this enough. I like if you're listening to this and you haven't read Vision, even though you know what's happened, go out and read this.
Yeah.
Go out and read this. You need to experience this.
I'm
I
telling
don't
you, I'm
even
gonna
want
be
to.
what you call it? I'm gonna be the Jehovah Witnesses knocking on people's doors saying, "Have you heard of Tom King's Vision?"
I don't even ever want them to adapt this.
No,
I
and
don't
I
want.
don't even want there to be like a sequel. This to me reminds me of The Prestige. Like it's just this one
Yeah, it
Nolan
was
movie.
perfect the way it was.
Yeah, it's one Nolan movie, intricate but beautiful, simple but extravagant and complex, and just keep it there. Press stop. That's it. That's it. It's just that. If you want to experience that, you go right to that. There is no tangential ties to anything else. You have to see it for what it is. And yeah, I don't know if it needs to be adapted because I feel like adaptations are, in particular, someone's point of view, and I feel like with this book, there's many point of views to be had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's just too much nuance, and then there's a few themes and levels to this book that you can only tell in the comic book medium.
Exactly.
Like
No, you're right.
the way the narration contrasts what's on the page, and there's certain things like that that you just can't adapt into any form.
Hmm.
I would love to see this just left alone. That's
Yes,
that's
please.
just I want it to be left alone, please.
Yes, please. But make sure that you guys pick up this comic. I know with the when we got on the Instagram and stuff and was telling everybody what the episode this was, I had the links in for Comixology and Amazon on there. I think I'm gonna put those in the show notes. I'm really gonna push for people to purchase this book and share it with friends, share it with people that like comics, share it with people who don't like comics. It has a lot to say about
Share it with people who have gone through mental health problems in their life.
yeah,
They
or have
need some.
lost
They
or have
this
massive
a
losses in
piece
their
of
life.
literature.
Yeah. Because
Absolutely.
ultimately, and it's beautiful that you said that. Ultimately, we all live on the idea that we're not alone. That what we're going through is not alone. That the human experience is not alone. That we're not the only ones to ever feel this way, go through this, and sometimes fight ourselves because of it. And just the same way that Tony was able to stand there and help somebody that he may not even really have understood at the time. He was there though, as a friend, and he chose to be there and help bring Viv back to life. You can do that with a person. You can show them, hey, listen, I may not know exactly how to express what you're going through and how you should feel and or know what to say to make things better, but how does this make you feel dealing with the same situations, in new nuanced ways and stuff. It really made me grateful. It made me grateful for the medium. It made me grateful for Tom King, which is something I probably couldn't have said 6 months ago. Uh, it made me grateful for Vision, that he exists and that he is as complex as he is, and that for probably another 20 years we will not ask him for his story. You understand what I'm saying? Like for another 20
Yeah.
years, no one will ask what Vision is up to. But for in 2006, for 12 issues, he was up to probably the greatest thing to come to comic books and comic book media. So I'm very grateful that we were able to tackle this on this show here.
I'm grateful that you put me on because it's one of those books that I always okay. So like sometimes I know that a story's good, but then you get so caught up in like modern reading, like what's coming out like topical today, what's coming out every Wednesday, and it's like hard to go backwards sometimes. It's hard to pick up something, even though it's great. It's like I don't have the time because I'm too busy reading everything that's coming out this Wednesday. So
Yes.
I'm grateful that you actually took me backwards with this vision because I've always heard about it. Like I've always known, I've always known that it was great, but I've never got to experience its greatness. So thank you.
Yeah. No, no. I thank you. You are my Sherpa in a lot of my comic book pilgrimages, and this was something that I saw, and if anything, me reaching out to you was a thank you back. This was like a reminder of why you're on the squad. Obviously, you're definitely part of the clique, but a reminder of why we have the clique. Why this is because there is gonna be moments in time where we read something so profound that we need to share it with one another and explain that it's not just a book. It really has a profound meaning on people's lives and how they have good outlooks and stuff. But we'll be doing more deep dives and all this stuff, comic books, television. We got Captain Marvel's around the corner next month.
Oh, already
Okay.
gets crazy. Sometimes when these movies get close, and I'm like thinking back to when it was just a name on a
Yeah,
list.
or when you were saying like
Like
2 years ago, yeah, I'll see that when that comes out, and now it's like
yeah,
it's out next
exactly.
week, and it's like, wait a
It's
minute, hold on.
it's insane.
Um, Doom Patrol's coming out. We got Doom Patrol coming out.
I'm excited for that.
I hear Young Justice
Young
is killing it.
Justice.
Yeah,
Oh my
you were
goodness,
saying
that
Young
is an
Justice is killing it.
entire that's an entire podcast on its own. Like
Yeah, yeah. But we're trying to cover all the great things that come to comic books and comic book media as part of the Major Issues podcast. So we'd like to thank all you listeners out there for listening to the Major Issues podcast, which you can find on Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Podbean, the Apple Podcast app, available on every iDevice,
Spotify,
Spotify, YouTube,
iTunes, YouTube.
iTunes, Stitcher.
We
There's a
are
Stitcher.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
we are literally everywhere, and the easiest way to find us is to Google Major Issues Podcast, and we're the first ones to pop right up. So go ahead and do that. If you'd like to actually reach out to us or the show, you can do so at facebook.com/comicbookclick, Instagram at comicbookclick, or use the hashtag comicbookclick to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. But if you want an instant reply, you have a better chance of hitting at Major Issues CBC, the official Twitter for the Major Issues Podcast. And we have gotten a little bit more interactive lately, and you guys are showing in spades that this is what you guys want. So we are happy to open our doors to conversations, and especially when it comes to works like this. I hope to do more prestige level comics soon because the week to week stuff is good, and the big box office movies are good, but these quiet moments are really what make comics tick a lot of the times. And I'm glad to have chopped it up here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you brought me.
Definitely. But my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
Hey, it's Jonathan Escudero, aka Yogi.
And this has been Tom King's Vision Run. Little worse than a man, little better than a beast. And whether you have punched a dog to death, whether
Oh,
somebody has come
goodness.
into your whether somebody has come to your house with a glowing scythe and put it through one of your children, whether your girlfriend doesn't laugh at your jokes as much as your ex used to, or 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 whether you are destined to not be victorious, Remember, be happy you are alive. Remember, we are the Clique, and remember, you, yes, you, are worthy.